Please rise. Flag. All right, so we got a full agenda. Up first, we got the ambulance service report.
Good evening. Now that we're all awake. So in front of you, there's two separate reports. If you look at the total calls on the left, the one with 964 is our monthly report, and then 11,774 is our yearly report. Nothing standing out too far outside of egregious calls or what have you. Most transports, 87% to Reading, 13% to St. Joe's, 76 year to date, 76% to Reading, 22% to St. Joe's, and we did have one to Ephrata in there for the month. Going back to the year, 2,418 calls in Cumru Township, with our highest dispatch is ALS Medical at 883. Again, 87% to Reading. In there, we did have a couple Ephrata, Phoenixville, Chop and King of Prussia, right, specialty cases. No, by all means. One of the things I'm working on this year is creating the report to be a little bit more user-friendly. This is something that's auto-populated, and what's been disseminated over the last couple of years due to the lack of staffing. But I'm looking to have something a little bit more user-friendly to you guys. The way this is designed is it's an online report, so when you highlight over, it then gives you an explanation, which obviously doesn't translate well to paper. So, is there any questions I can answer you?
I don't think so. I just have to say thank you. I appreciate this.
Yeah, hopefully this
is very helpful.
Hopefully this is the last month of technical difficulties, but if not, I'll see you next month.
Thank you. Moving on, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion.
I'll second. All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
I have to make a note. I abstain because of my employment.
Let the record show.
From the minutes or from this was for the minutes.
Approval of the minutes? No.
No. Thank you.
I vote yay.
Okay.
Okay,
so that's everyone. Moving on, there is a tax collector report. Is there, Patty, did you have anything notable to share about that?
No, there's nothing outstanding. I think after this month is when they usually turn things over to collections. So you will see that before the new bills come out. And as you can see on the disclaimer on the bottom, we had an administrative liaison meeting, and Andy would like to try to shorten the agendas a little bit. So in the future, this information will be on the collector's page of the website. The tax collector is responsible to give us a monthly report. So we will have that monthly report. It just will appear on the website. If there's any difficulties, we can always get it to you any other way, but that's how it's going to be presented for right now.
Yep. Like Patty said, I asked for the sake of the public who are reading the agenda, make it easy to skim. We don't need half of a page of the agenda dedicated to a report that we can publish online. If you need it, you can either come into the office, email the administrative staff. Anybody's welcome to the information, but just to make it easier for anybody to quickly get through the agenda and understand what's being talked about in the meeting itself. So moving on to public, we have a couple people that signed up. Let's start with Maria Wagner with regard to a crosswalk at the Mifflin Center. Please state your name And you're welcome to say your address for the public. If you want to keep that private, you can take it to the secretary.
Hello, I'm Maria Wagner. My address is.
Yeah, please just try to speak into the microphone.
Oh, sure.
You can take it off or whatever is comfortable for you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Maria Wagner. I am the administrator at the Mifflin Center. My address is 166 West Adamsdale in Schuylkill Haven. And I am here to ask for some guidance just to better understand how we as a facility could be able to manage the crosswalk. We're willing to pay for it, any upkeep, but the lines are faded and it's hard for our staff to walk from the upper parking lot across to the lower parking lot. And I have not had success in doing that. We did offer to pay to paint the lines, to obtain signs, and pretty much anything.
So is that your main concern, is the faded, or is it more than that, or?
It's a little more. I did talk to PennDOT as well as Cumru Township. I can't really get a decision as to who owns the crosswalk to manage it, but they did say that they're no longer considering it a crosswalk in the last 6 months. I haven't received any written notification about that. I've just been told that. So I don't know how it suddenly disappears as a crosswalk. I've been there 10 years.
Was that the state that said that?
That was Cumru Township and PennDOT.
This be your.
Sure, I can,
Joe?
I can add on. I believe that was a crosswalk that was approved a while ago by PennDOT. I know one of the former police officers I was dealing with, we did try to research it to determine when that was approved. Typically with the crosswalk, usually the municipality is responsible. PennDOT will refresh the double yellows, the white edge lines, the lane lines, but when it comes to crosswalks, the municipality is responsible to replace those. And that can be an agreement with the owner, or some type of arrangement could be made for payment in lieu of. As far as signage and so forth, if additional signage, PennDOT would still need to approve that. And then 9 out of 10 chances they won't pay for it. They would have to have either Cumru Township would pay for it, or an agreement made between Cumru and the Mifflin Center for furnishing of those extra safety enhancements for that crosswalk. I'm assuming you're having some issues with motorists not yielding and the visibility.
Yes.
Since 724 is a heavily traveled road these days.
Yes.
There are some enhancements that PennDOT will allow. You can go to very expensive where you can have a flashing beacon. That's something that would need to be approved by the department, and they could be costly, but you can also put in some type of pedestrian signage. They use safety green. They have more reflectivity. They call it type 3 reflectivity, which is more, it'll pick up more with headlights and so forth in nighttime hours, and that's something that can be looked at. And then we just need to get approval from PennDOT, and then the installation and it would need to be worked out as far as cost wise.
Yeah, I did offer to paint the lines. I offered to buy any signage. They said I was not allowed to do so. They said I have to move the crosswalk to the next intersection for $26,000.
Who is they? Is that the township or is that
Between
PennDOT?
Cumru Township and PennDOT.
Okay.
And moving
Well-
it down by the daycare our staff wouldn't benefit because it's down the road. So, but I'll upkeep it in any way possible. I'll pay the cost.
I know in years past, what we've done is we've purchased the signs down to put down there. They are costly, but we've always purchased the signs to go down there. I know as far as the police department goes, and I can speak for on behalf of the township as well, that I'm not sure where you would get that, because once a crosswalk is established, it's established. It doesn't go away. I know that crosswalk, being a mid-block crosswalk, presents its challenges and difficulties. And I think since the installation of that crosswalk, the traffic flow on that road has changed and increased probably substantially. The line of sight is not good. And there's no doubt that motorists are coming around that bend pretty aggressively. And since there's a parking lot right across from the center, I know your employees use that frequently.
They do every shift, yes.
So, I mean, as far as the township goes with trying to enhance the visibility of that, I think that's a good idea. And we can work with Public Works on, at least for the PD, signage to get down there. I have no problem doing that. Obviously, we've done that in the past. As far as painting goes, I'd have to defer to, Mr. Yost with that.
Shirley will pay the cost of whatever's needed.
I just want to say I agree with Madison and Joe.
Great. Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you.
I think we also have like some issues on other crosswalks on that road as well. I think it's the same kind of problem. I think it's up a little bit further, closer to the school, correct? Same situation. So maybe this is a conversation around that whole stretch down there on 724. I'm assuming it's the same solution just for each one, or is it different?
Well, it's a little bit different with the mid-block crosswalk, but you're correct. There's issues with that intersection right across from the elementary school. Now, we do have the warning device that is there. We've explored that, in the past. That's actually getting replaced, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So is there any enhancements that are gonna be done with the replacement of that, or just standard?
I know what we did look at that stretch of 724 a while ago. One of the things we could do is add some additional signage. I think that in our study we did make some recommendations for some signage to put at each crosswalk, because that's a very congested area. If I recall, I believe at Newcastle you have a crosswalk, and then you have the flashing lights on either end of the limits where 15-mile-per-hour speed limit during certain school hours has to be applied for, or cars have to adhere to. There are some signage that I think we can take a look at that can better improve that safety. Even with 15 miles per hour, you always do have motorists who have a tendency of exceeding that at times. And off school hours, there could be activities where students need to cross that walkways. We can look at some signage. My recommendation, I think at a minimum, would look at some signage that has high reflectivity, see how that works. Going with the flash and beacon and so forth, it's a long process to go through PennDOT, because any type of light fixture, whether it's a warning light or a traffic light, falls under their jurisdiction, whether it's a local road or a state road. So I think right now, we might be able to hopefully improve safety with signage as a first take, and then see how things progress.
And I will say too, since that flashing device, warning device has been out, we have an officer down there every morning for drop off, and then we also have them back down there for pickup to have a visible presence to slow motorists down in that area.
I was just gonna ask, maybe Madison and Mike, could you guys just give us a follow-up maybe next time, where we're at, if there's any delays or that kind of thing?
The
Thank you
only
for bringing it
delay
up.
right now will be painting. We can't do it this time of year, so that would have to wait till spring.
Moving on, I believe we have a few more members of the public. Mr. Althouse.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Althouse, and I reside at 1627 Gregg Avenue with my wife, which is in Cumru Township. I have two issues to bring before you tonight that regard township ordinances. Number one, about 5 years ago, the homeowner at 1615 Gregg Avenue paved the alley alongside of his property without a permit. This alley runs parallel to Pershing Boulevard, and it connects with Meade Street and Gregg Avenue, which are township roads. There was no drainage done. When he paved the alley, he deliberately created a curb, and the rainwater runoff that used to run out in the Gregg Avenue and into the sewer now runs into an adjacent alley, into my backyard, my neighbor's backyard, and into our basements. I showed Commissioner Rao a video of it. She visited with us last Friday. We took a walk and physically examined the curb there where the rainwater is running off into the adjacent alley. Number two, 1618 Greg Avenue. The woman that resides there has towels hanging outside the second and third floor windows. There's a bush that grows in the summertime that covers her entire porch. The neighbors on either side of her cannot enjoy their porches in the evenings because the bush attracts mosquitoes. There is junk and debris out in the front yard and dog feces. Greg, that 1600 block of Greg Avenue is kept clean. It's neat. We have Black families living there. We have Latino families living there. This is the only house that looked like a pigsty. It depreciates the value of everybody else's homes on that block. If we were going to sell our property, the first thing they would see across the street is this eyesore. The alley situation, I believe there's two township ordinances that are involved here. One is your nuisance ordinance, and the other one regards the pavement of a private alley. Because that alley connects to two township streets, it requires a drainage proposal, and that must be approved by the code enforcement department. There seems to be some debate on this.
Which were the ordinances? Sorry.
Private alleys, pavement, because there's a clause, because the alley is private and connects to two township streets, there's a drainage requirement that's supposed to be approved and investigated before a permit was issued. According to what I've discovered, this property owner didn't even apply for a permit, didn't have a permit, just paved the alley and deliberately created this curve for the rainwater runoff so that stones above could not wash down on his property. Okay, I don't believe these are private issues. They involve township ordinances, and that's why I'm coming to you about it. We have laws that police enforce, otherwise our society would be utter chaos. And I believe the same thing applies with municipal governments. There are ordinances and rules as residents and homeowners that we must abide by. And these ordinances are not being abided by. And I'm asking the township to do something about this. I believe that notices should be sent, and if they fail to respond, that fines should be issued. I believe the ordinance also has a clause that if the fines are ignored, that the township can go in there and like put a drain there, put ladders up against that house, take those towels down, take a chainsaw and cut that thing, take all that junk off the front yard, haul it off, and then bill the property owner.
Okay. I've taken some notes. I think the staff is informed. Kelsey?
Yeah,
Dad?
Mr. Aldhouse, I recently was informed about these issues. I'm going to take a look at everything that you've sent over. I'm going to talk to our stormwater engineer and take a look at everything, and I'll reach out to you.
This Rao has a very good video of the rainwater coming down from Mead Street and going to the right into the adjacent alley. Two of my neighbors are here also tonight regarding 1618 Greg Avenue.
Mr. Alha, would you give me the citations for those ordinances? I
Googled it, okay? I can't get the specific ordinance.
Is that the thing you got from the representative's office, or it looks like you got
there was a communication problem, okay? And I contacted the state representative about it when I was not receiving any response to my complaints. Commissioner Rao and I have since resolved that issue.
Well, if you have a citation, I would really appreciate it, because I have looked and I have found none of what you said.
Okay, I understand that I'd have to look through the Public Records Act to obtain copies of your ordinances.
Well, you could come down and look at the code.
Okay.
Yourself.
I can't imagine that there would not be some kind of stipulations. I mean,
I couldn't find anything.
We'll keep the dialogue going. Certainly, we want to hear what you have to say. Just so you know, some things are within the purview of the township. There's jurisdictions, probably not the correct legal parlance,
Yeah,
but some things are our
let's look at
responsibility.
everything and dig into it. I have your information. I'll reach out to you and we can have a conversation.
I appreciate it.
If anything, the township can and can't do about it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can say when I was there to observe, I did go to that alley that goes down alongside of the houses, and where the pavement stopped, you could see the way the water went in ruts down the side alley and dumped into his yard. You can clearly see that.
Yeah, I understand. And it may or may not be something that this board and this township has the authority to do anything about, but I'd like to look into it a little further for you.
All right, moving on. Is there a Mr. Ensman who would like to speak?
Thank you. My property is at 1620 Gregg Street. Been living there for 33 years, I believe. As Kevin said, my next door neighbor at 1618 has made the whole area kind of an eyesore. My wife, all the years we were there, always sat in the front porch. Summertime when it's comfortable. Can't do it anymore because she has all these weeds. I had pictures of it that are growing around the front of her property. So it's loaded with mosquitoes and everything else like that. The back, I have pictures. It's horrible. Weeds grow out of the ground and everything else. They don't do anything about it. The son there has dug a hole. They have the yard sits up with the brick wall. It's dug a hole in the yard so deep that the bricks have come out. Every time it rains, my driveway is full of mud. It runs off right into it. And it's just a horrible situation. We've had a good neighborhood. We've got some new neighbors. And as Kevin said, of different nationalities. They're all great. We get along good. And it's not that we don't get along with our next door neighbor, but she just doesn't do anything. She lives there. Her father takes care of everything for her. And it's just a mess. And it's just an eyesore. There's a grill that they bought a few years ago that's actually sitting on part of my property. That's not big a deal, but she bought a grill. There's a grill sits out there on the driveway for 3 years now. Never moved, just sits there. It's just so many things. Bugs everywhere, weeds everywhere. And it's horrible. So I don't know what we can do, but as a concerned citizen and a neighbor living there for all these years, I hope there's something we can do, at least to clean up the front of the place where all these things are growing, weeds. And as Kevin said, told about the tree, that started out as a weed and it's now fully grown. And my neighbor's going to talk to you next door. He's got the worst part about it because it's growing into his property. And it's just a mess. And we're just asking for help of cleaning it up, whatever you can do. So
Again, if you can, any documentation you have, share it with the township and we'll continue.
yeah, I have actual pictures that I took of it. So anyways, I've enjoyed living here all these years. You guys done a good job. Appreciate the taxes and everything else. Everything's been good. And I'm just concerned. It just doesn't think it's fair. You know, my wife's 78 years old. It's one thing she likes, sitting on the front porch. Can't do it anymore just because all the weeds in front of the house and the bugs and everything else. It's horrible. So I ask for your help. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ensman. Just for everyone, I think we have a couple more people to speak. We do have a full agenda. I want to make sure we are timely. We usually keep public comment to 3 minutes. So I'm going to try to, I'm not going to interrupt anybody mid-sentence, but try to keep an eye on the clock and keep it to within around 3 minutes. Is there a Mr. Dietrich?
I wanted to come to the township meeting tonight to go on public record for a matter of public safety and health. And that's the water pressure on Hilgard Avenue as well as Gerald Avenue. All right. Last week, some of you may know, and especially the new commissioners, you're not aware of the water problems we have on Hilgard Avenue. The development was built and there was no real plan for us to have water pressure to our homes. We have to have booster pumps at our house. When we first built the homes, we used to have 14 to 20 PSI of water pressure without the pump. Now we have absolutely no water pressure without our booster pumps. So now if the power goes out, we have no water pressure whatsoever if we bypass the pumps. Second concern is if there's a water main break somewhere in the township, our booster pumps continue to run and burn up because there's no water to supply them. So you're looking at $1,700 for a new booster pump. I don't understand how that development was allowed to be put in the first place, that the PUC doesn't have some type of standard for water pressure or supply. Another concern for this is last week we had a major fire of $500,000 damage to one home on our street. And the firefighters could not get enough water for their hose. Okay, the water hose was able to be stepped on and was soft, and that's not what it should be when it's supplying fire trucks. So many of you don't know this, but approximately 40 years ago, a gentleman lost his life on Gerald Avenue. At the top of Gerald Avenue, they couldn't get water up to it. The hydrant was a dry hydrant, right? They couldn't get to the gentleman to rescue him from his second floor bedroom. So this is a problem that I think needs to be addressed. I think, one, I can't understand how homes can have public water but not have public water. I think we should have an adequate water supply. And two, the issue of safety as far as fighting a fire properly and be able to hook to a hydrant and go to work immediately, I think should be first priority. So I really feel that there's an issue that the township needs to look into. I know Borough of Shillington supplies our water in that area, but I think the township still has an obligation to contact the Borough of Shillington to ensure that we have the proper water pressure for firefighting and for our own public residents. That's my case. Anyway.
I was just going to ask, so this is something you're aware of, I'm sure, Chief Beam?
Yes, I'm aware of it. There's been contact made with Shillington Water. Quite honestly, this has been an ongoing issue for years. Normally we'd have pressure. There were some other operational things going on there too that day, but there's still an issue. Shillington's aware of it. They have a call into service about it. I was not aware about the domestic issue, so I'll reach back out to Shillington Water tomorrow and say, hey, by the way, I believe this is the case. With temperatures today, it's a little bit tough to allow just loss of water because we're going to create an ice skating luge on Hilgard, not the best excuse. We are running tankers out there on all calls to Hilgard, but this is supplied with a pump station which maintains fire. And this comes off that crosses the Lancaster Corridor. So this is that complex area of the township. I don't disagree. I don't like the design. I wasn't part of the design, but we are aware of it. We're running extra equipment. Luckily that day, due to the actions of the departments that were there, things were kept in check and we were able to take care of what we needed to with tank water. That's not in every case. But Shillington Water was contacted. They're working on the situation. And I believe it's a holdup of the contractor or part. But I will reach out again tomorrow morning and let them know about the domestic side of it and see if we can't get a pressure off of that hydrant. The one at the top, you might as well forget about altogether. It's the second one and the lower one. The one at Gerald and Hilgard was off tank pressure. That's probably the most reliable thing we have pre-pump station. So we are aware of it. They were notified. There's an issue with the pump station. And outside of that, I can't say where we're at, other than I know it's being worked on and we're waiting for service or technical support to come out for the controls in that station. So.
Chief,
hopefully it helps.
is that all your purview, or is that Public Works in there too, or?
The entire water system's Shillington water.
But I mean, with regard to like the communication and interaction on that front.
I think equally, we both have communication where Shillington water, because if I see something or obviously notice something or have something reported to me, then I make a phone call. Just the other day, I called in a water main break. In Mountain Borough. Because I came across it. So we do, but the infrastructure wise and everything involving that is the responsibility of Shillington water. So, but I'll reach out again to them tomorrow and see if we can't get something addressed with this domestic issue side of things.
If you have any contacts over there too, Mike, feel free to reach out. Could you give us, just jot a note down on what you hear back and give us an update next month?
Certainly, actually, you'll probably get an update as I get an update. But I got one Monday and they're not happy with their updates we're giving me, so. These are some of the issues why you need pump stations, you can have issues with tanks, you can have issues with lots of things. And when you do, depending what the issue is, it's a problem, but our temporary fix to that is bring tankers. We can still relay pump. There's still viable water at the bottom of the hill. But that's quite the elevation change, as I showed in our manager, Peter the other day, because he was with me when we had the structure fire, and that your elevation there is about the same height, if not maybe even close to or higher than the tank levels on the ridge across the street. So that prevents a hydraulic issue too. Just from a hydraulic standpoint, without pumps. But the bottom end there, we can pick up a viable resource. So I can keep everyone apprised of this information.
Sounds like an engineering challenge. Okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Moving on, do we have? Okay. I didn't miss anybody who signed up for public comment. Okay, we're gonna amend the agenda slightly. Nothing is being added or taken away, just the order of operations here. I think there were two things. I think there are some folks in attendance for that are at the very end of the agenda, and rather than have you sit and wait through a bunch of stuff you're not here for, we're going to move that stuff up to the front. So the two things are first, I believe we have where are we? The Elkins Avenue traffic issues. And then next we're going to get to some of the vacancies, specifically the Planning Commission. So is someone here to speak about the Elkins Avenue issues? I know, Mark, you had brought some of this up.
Mr. Badgley is here tonight to represent the street there and talk about the traffic issues that he's experiencing. So if you'd like. Does he also have a time limit?
No, this is a regular agenda item that you had brought forth. So
Right.
this is
Okay. So yes, if you could sort of set the table for us, we're maybe give some color to this, but when we were out, we met with you, you talked, and what's the address again?
105 Elkins is where I live. So.
Right. 105 Elkins. So just to sort of set the stage, this is the road that runs between Giant Shopping Center and the intermediate school. So there's a considerable amount of traffic, certain times of the day, that especially as schools opening and closing. But in general, that road is highly trafficked, and it's causing a lot of issues for people that live there, like Mr. Badgley, where he has had to move his vehicles off of the road to another street that runs perpendicular to it, And anyways, if you could describe what you're experiencing.
Yeah, it's very much a funneling of all of the traffic, as well as the fact that through this constriction of parking on both sides of the street, it really isn't wide enough to handle in the high traffic times when school is in session, which is really just about every weekday morning. You can't fit a bus along with two parked cars and then another car going along the side. So in essence, what you've got is the equivalency of a slalom run in a car going through traffic, during a high traffic area with not only students in the buses, but students that are walking across a pretty major intersection down there as well. So it's really difficult. I think it's a safety issue. And the traffic also can back up for blocks depending on the weather. When the weather is the worst, the traffic is the worst because that's when most of the parents are dropping off their kids on those particular day. All of the foot traffic turns into auto traffic. So there's a lot of things that are creating some safety issues. And for me, just on a personal level, I just was tired of allocating $1,000 a year to replace the mirrors on my car that were getting hit each and every time. So I have to park, blocks away in a safe place because you can see cars just stop. They come to this particular area with two vehicles parked on each side, and they have to wait. And in cases where, they don't wait, well, yeah, it becomes very tight and especially at night is difficult, through that area as well. So, in a nutshell, that area is really difficult for the amount of traffic and for the size of the road. And we were just talking about, a possibility of, two things. One, possibly maybe even adding a stop sign to be able to just slow the vehicles down a little bit would add some safety because there's nothing that stops a car going from Lancaster Avenue down to the schools. So it's just a constant acceleration of vehicles coming and going too.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you were floating out there as an idea, but this is sort of more difficult of a sell, I suppose, because of neighbors, was to have parking only available maybe certain times of the day on one side of the road, one side of Elkins. So that was another idea. But this is an intersection where Mr. Badgley's at that is like a convergence of traffic. And so the stop sign was another idea that, like you said, could maybe slow down the traffic.
Yeah, if it's slowed down, at least it gives, I think, people an ability to react better. They can get in through a 2-block stretch where they're kind of at the point of no return. When they go down this road, if another car is coming, something's got to give. And what you're relying on is the ability of all of these, drivers that they're going to be top notch and they're going to see correctly and they're going to, not be distracted. Everybody understands. There's laws against distracted driving, but we all know what the reality is. And, especially when people are going back and forth from school and they're trying to check to see, where their kids are going and that. And, so we haven't had a high degree of accidents there, but clearly the safety of that particular area right now with buses and the amount of traffic and parking up both sides of the street, the eventuality is that there's going to be an incident.
Just an anecdote to share. I think you were here, was it 2 months ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Greg knows better than I think.
After that meeting, my wife asked me, how was the meeting? And I mentioned some of the highlights, one of which was Elkins Avenue. And that's all I said before she immediately said, what, the crazy parking during school hours? So that's just one person's anecdote. And certainly I'm biased to think to take her word for it. But her immediate response without any detail given was, that it's crazy and
That's what I'm
scary.
talking about. It's a slalom run in your car. You know, during the day, it's a slalom run in your car, going in and out of traffic and trying to get up the street.
Yeah, and my wife brings our daughter to Mifflin Park right at the hours you're talking about, and occasionally I do too. So I've experienced it to much lesser degree, but it seems to be a problem that we should try to come up with a solution for.
Right. So what would be our sort of next step in sort of evaluating the situation and some remedies?
I can comment. There's criteria for establishing no parking along local streets. PennDOT up to 12 has a list of factors. One of them you mentioned where you have if parking is already allowed and you have two cars that have to yield oncoming vehicles, that's a criteria where you can restrict parking, either it's on one side or both sides. Typically, they'll look at 18 feet from curb to center line is what you really need to allow for parking, because it gives you about a 10-foot travel lane in one direction, then you have a 10-foot on the other. But I'm assuming that road's probably around 30 feet wide. I'm taking a guess from my experience in that area. You probably, and you have both sides have parking. The problem is your neighbors are going to be upset because there's no place to park.
I mean,
but it sounds like a safety issue, and I'll defer to the police chief whether they have had incidences or accidents. But there are certain things that you can restrict parking for those reasons, and like I said, you touched upon one of them. The other one is looking at the geometry of the road, speed, accident history, and so forth. So there's some things that can be done to help correct that. However, it will be there'll be some backlash from your residents who
I get backlash in my whole house. Okay,
but no, I just from my experience, that happens a lot. But putting stop signs, unfortunately, can't be used for speed control. You can always look at multi-way. I believe we had 2 studies that were done for the multi-way at Elkins and Harding, and they proved that a multi-way was not warranted at that location. I think the last time a study was done, maybe 2017, 2018. I think one was done by.
And that was before the other school was put in down.
Right. A lot of that is traffic. There's a lot of factors with the multi-way, and one of them is the number of vehicles, the average number of vehicles that approach that intersection on any given 8-hour period. There's a set number of cars. There's a set number of what they call pedestrians. Sight distance is always, it can be an issue, but it has to be looked at carefully, because sight distance, if it can be corrected, meaning you can restrict parking to improve that line of sight for a vehicle, then that can't be used as a factor. More or less, sight distance is more where you have a geometric restriction on a road, curve, abrupt curve, a hill of some sort. That those things can be looked at, but I think the township can look at the geometry of the road and see what the widths are, and at least come up with maybe some ideas that can be.
Yeah, and that's all that really we wanted to.
At least we can consider looking into
some type of a study, and the whole traffic pattern back there. We talked about, the last time, the fact that it isn't just obviously Elkins Avenue, it's the road that runs, along the side there too, that during times of the day, it's really ridiculous. But there is a precedent set in the fact of when they're community days, they don't allow parking on either side of the street to, assist the flow of traffic there. So there had to be some criteria used, to say, hey, we've got to restrict this traffic because there isn't a lot of distance and we have so many cars going up and down. So
I think you touch upon another factor. There's a higher amount of traffic using that road because it's a shortcut. You have a traffic light. It's easy to get back on Lancaster Avenue, and most motorists will take the least path of resistance to get to their destination. And unfortunately, that happens. We're humans, but that's probably aggravating the situation, because now you're seeing a higher volume of traffic that you probably didn't. So that's just increasing more yielding and delays from traffic flow.
Yeah, like I said, on a personal level, I'm starting to get my mirrors all ripped off. On a safety level, I see all the kids that is like almost ground zero for, school age children traffic, in that particular area, going to the high school, going down to the intermediate school, and the kids crossing the street there just down from Elkins Avenue on Harding there. I mean, it's a big, wide intersection now. Yes, it's got crosswalks painted, in there, but come on, these are kids, I mean, they're just trying to get across the street. Okay.
And I wanted to just quick ask, who's best suited to own this as like an action item to bring back or follow up on this with us?
I would defer to Joe Rogoski.
Joe, that work for you?
I could take a look at it and I can coordinate with the Public Works Department and let them know, and I can come up with some recommendations and just more or less give an evaluation to the Public Works that we can discuss at another meeting as an agenda item on some options that the board might want to consider to improve safety in that area.
It sounds great.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you. The next thing we're going to move up is the vacancies for the Planning Commission. I think we might have some. Oh, excuse me. There was another traffic issue that we wanted to move up. The Summit Avenue. I believe somebody might have been here to speak about.
We have Ahmed here to represent some of the concerns, but I think there have been also concerns raised by other folks, not just you.
Yeah, it's fairly, as we've been talking about bringing in the new business in the borough. Hey, it's time to take care of the old business as well. I know we want to bring in new business, but we have an issue with the parking on Summit Avenue. Summit Avenue is the only road for 2 blocks where there's no parking. If you go west east of Lancaster Avenue, you see the parking there. You go back, there's parking, but 2 blocks for the the townhouse building, there's no parking. But I'm being a bad guy. The days when the market is open and we are busy. You have all seen the market, thank God, thriving and busy days. When the tenants are parking there or their tenants, they think they have a right to do it. The parking is for the market. When you have somebody coming in to take care of the seniors or handicapped personnel, the town apartment or whatever, it used to be Sentinel House, they don't have any parking for that. So they park in the market. And when they want to buy a car, they want to put stuff on the social media when you tell them nicely to move it, because we're busy. And so that's one problem. Second is, hey, market is thriving at times, even though we have it's grocery business, as we all know, is challenging lately. And still, I need to make it easier for the small businesses. Shillington Farmers Market supports 50 full-time jobs in Cumru Township and another 30 part-time. So it's a fairly big chunk of the economic engine which we are running in Cumru, because any money is made is spent within the township and stays within the township. 80% of the people who have stands, they either went to Mifflin or they live in Mifflin or they walk to work. I think a lot of you guys, you know the tenants there, right? All of you guys shop there, you guys. So I realize there could be a snow route issue, there could be whatever issues, but we can limit the parking from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So nobody parks there overnight. But the Summit Avenue, those 2 blocks, whatever we're gonna call it, in front of Sentinel House and the market, I don't understand no parking. I understand the snow route. I do. But snow route can be like any other town, any other city with some limited hours at night. Don't allow any parking at night. But it might take care of the Elkins Avenue issue too. If there's a parking allowed on that side, we're not that far. Elkins is one side of the Giants and Summit is another side of it.
but it will support my vendors. A lot of them are older and the customers to park decently. And it will give us some parking. Please help us. And go ahead, please.
I was just gonna ask, so, sorry, I'm not immediately familiar with the aspect of our traffic ordinance with regard to the parking restrictions. You're saying the in front of the Sensit apartment buildings, there's restricted parking
Those
right
couple
now. You're
blocks.
looking to have it opened up.
Yes, on the
Okay.
Shillington Farmers Market too.
Just want to make sure I'm
All the
following.
way from Lancaster Avenue, from the bank, all the way down past Sunset House, there's no parking on both sides. It's gonna add, I think, 30, 40 parking if you allow parking, and make things easier for the senior citizens. For their caretakers can park there and go visit them, families who go visit them, because there's no parking whatsoever. They have a need for 200 cars and they have 66 parking. I have a written email from the tenants and management of the Sensit House.
I think this has been brought to our attention by Senator Schwank as well, right?
Yes.
Is that right, Greg? So, yeah, it's, people who live in the Sensit House have been talking to the state representative as well, like the issues that you raised. There's just not enough parking given the size of the parking lot.
And I don't want to be the bad guy for not, and pardon my language, you let somebody screw you once, they want to screw you all the time, and they don't realize that Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays when the market is open, they cannot park.
So maybe I'll throw it to, I don't know who the right person is, Joe, Chief Winchester. Is there a reason why folks can't park on Summit? I mean, I know that's what the thing
This
is,
was
but
looked at a while ago, several years ago. My concern would be the traffic signal to see what our permit and our condition diagram has. PennDOT may have required a restriction of parking. They usually will go back 100 to 150 feet from that intersection with signage and so forth. So they may have restricted that because right now it's serving as I'll say more like an ad hoc type of lane. It's only one lane, and we've had requests to try to put a turning lane in there, but we would need to take right away and property, and I think it'd be very costly for us to do that. It was something that was looked at probably 12 years ago, if I recall, back in I think 2013. That's something I would want to look at. I mean, I can easily look up the condition diagram just to see how, if parking had to be restricted in that area only because of turning movements and so forth. I think the same thing falls in line with Elkins. If the board, I mean, something we can look at and see what the cartway width is and see what the geometry is. I'm not saying it can't happen. I think it's something we probably do want to look at with the amount of traffic. Summit does take a lot of traffic. It has a considerable amount. Chief, I might be 7,000 vehicles a day. I might be off a little bit, but it does have a high volume of traffic on that road.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure about the width of that road as well. But I know that I think like anything else, if you restrict parking or you allow parking, 50% of the people are going to be in favor, 50% of the people are going to be upset. Part of the issue with Sensit not having enough parking for their employees or individuals visiting residents is causing the problem for the intersection just up the road at Harding that we are doing studies on, and because they're parking there. Unbiasedly, I can do anything the board wants when it comes to studies. The only thing I can really do is show you traffic volumes, traffic accidents. Personally, I think it's very difficult to, when you're speaking in terms of restricting parking, but not providing an alternative, because ultimately they have to go somewhere and they're going to go somewhere. As far as allowing parking, I'd have to look at it. I'm not sure what issues would be created if you allow parking. I am absolutely positive though, if we do, or if the board decides to do that, there'll be probably equally as many people the next meeting arguing that it was opened up. And there's no doubt that this is an issue. Both blocks are difficult and there's issues with both, but as far as what I can provide would be a traffic count and an accident count for any roadway in the township.
May I please add something to it? Joe, first of all, I apologize. It's a lot more than 150 square foot. I promise you, 150 feet is done at the bank. Let me just correct you with that. It's not, it doesn't come even past the market. That's one. Number two, chief, with the people unhappy and all that, I agree with you. But both sides, 2 blocks further, either direction, there's parking lot. So why I'm the lucky one, which I live on the street, that 2 blocks. I'm one of the fortunate one who live and work in Cumru Township.
No, I
I've
understand.
been doing it for 20 some years.
But 2 blocks, we do have to compare what the geography of those 2 blocks is dramatically different. So you have the market, you have the shopping center, you have the Sunset Town Home, you have the townhomes across the street, you have the car dealership, you have the bank, all of which have roads that go into those locations. 2 blocks down, you don't have that.
I agree.
So you got to be careful. I agree with you, but just be careful when you're comparing.
No,
Chief,
Chief, you're a professional. I'm just I used to peddle ice cream cones and I'm selling whatever. So let me just. It's also a safety issue. You've seen the population who shops at market and who lives in Sentinel House. Them walking on their walker. And God knows that how many times you came to the market, still come to the market, somebody claimed that they were almost hit and they fell.
That is true. It is
very routine in that area. Sunset House too. All day long. I wish if I had $1 for every time a fire truck or ambulance comes in the middle of the night, I'll be very rich man. So that's for this agenda. Can I just give me 1 more minute? I saw that great article, how you're interested in economic growth and how you want to grow the Lancaster. The person who's been living and breathing Mifflin air, Cumru air for 23 years. When I don't know if you remember me from Dairy Queen, and I've been in 5 different boroughs. But one thing which is constant is Mifflin. I always had a business since 2002 in Mifflin. That being said, maybe you might want to include Shillington, maybe make a committee between Shillington and Cumru, get a commissioner or a couple community members involved. I'm not volunteering, I'm just suggesting, because the whole corridor, just like we did when I was part of the YMSA in West Reading, perhaps that might be the one way to go. My only suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just so you're aware, we have a steering committee that was formed as a part of the Economic Development Initiative, which did include members of the Shillington Borough. Again, this is going to become a pattern here. With regard to the summit parking, Chief, you mentioned possibly traffic data. If we have any, would that be something new we would need to generate?
I think it would be smart to gather new data, just because that's always a good idea, not rely on past data. So we can look to what we do is we use our traffic boards and we don't analyze speed so much as we do the traffic counts. And then we can also look, and we provide that to Joe, and we can also look at any kind of accidents or incidents that have occurred and also provide that to Joe.
Thank you. Anything else on that? Do we want to move to the Planning Commission vacancies? I think, Greg, you had something on this?
Yeah, so we have 2 folks that have agreed to volunteer to be on the board. So I'll start maybe with Joe Rowland, if you'd like to go out and just kind of say a little bit about yourself so the board could consider your nomination.
Yeah, excuse me, my name is Joseph Rowland. I live on 456 Kenny Drive. I resided in Colonial Hills on Stewart Avenue from age 4 to 21. So that's right below Goggersville. A short time, once Kathy and I were married, we lived in an apartment in Reading for about a year or so. And then we lived in Shillington and for a couple of years, and now we live on Kenny Drive, which is again right below Gongersville. So I've been in this community for my 69 years of life, probably 68 of them or so. I don't have a lot of experience as far as a planning commissioner, so to speak. I think I have a lot of good common sense about development. I don't believe development is bad, and I don't believe development is good. It's on a case-by-case situation. And I'm very, very interested in our community, especially the 222 area, coming up to a more of attractive area than we have right now. So with that said, I mean, I wouldn't really know what else to add to this other than I know we talked at length for a couple times about the trucking terminal, and that to me is an example of where development would not be good for our area. So that's something I would be against. But I look at like the Penn Avenue area and see what a great job they did in that area. And I look at communities like Lidditz and see what a great job they've done in those areas. And I really see that vision for the Shillington area and that corridor of 222. I really believe we can do that and I think Greg and Andy have come a long way with bringing the people in to advise us to do so. And so that's all I really have. If you have any questions, just fire away.
So for the board, do we want to hear from both people right away? Do we want to address each one individually?
We have 2 vacancies. 2 permanents.
Yes, because another thing that just came up that I quick amended the agenda for was I got another resignation yesterday. So since it was already on the agenda, I just thought I'd add on. So
But that
2 permanent
okay.
and 1 alternate is what we are needing right now.
That being said, why don't we just have both folks introduce themselves and then we can go ahead and perhaps fill the vacancies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Badgley, back up again.
Well, you already know where I live. But I've lived within the township since 1992, so I've seen a lot of changes. I've been a professional. I've had some degree of exposure in the planning related to. I've worn a lot of hats in my business career. Obviously, you can tell I've been around a little bit, but project management being one of them, and dealing with boroughs and statutes and different things like that. I do a lot of traveling around the area, so and more to do with high school sports. I broadcast that for a living, but I do see a lot of communities. I do, I am cognizant of places that are doing things right and others that are doing things wrong. So I think I've got a good perspective on what works and what doesn't. And yeah, that's about, unless you had any questions. Okay.
One thing I'll say, just as part of our deliberation, look, if somebody has years of planning experience or engineering experience, that's fantastic. That for me is not a we don't have enough folks lining up who have decades of planning and engineering and municipal experience. So that's not a disqualifying thing and anything. My personal opinion is that we want people who are engaged in our community and care about the outcomes in our community. So that's my
two send them for planning classes too. So it's, even if you don't, you'll get educated on these kind of things.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So you want to, if there's no other questions, I would nominate both Joe Rowland and Bruce Badgley to be permanent members of the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay. Hear a motion to nominate both Joe Rowland and Bruce Badgley to be permanent to be permanent members on the Planning Commission. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? This is unanimous. The ayes have it. Welcome aboard. And thank you for volunteering your time.
I would request that if I could get your emails before you leave, that's how I get all the information to you before the meetings.
Just to clarify, Andy, the motion was to appoint them, right? Not to nominate them, to appoint them to the board. Okay, just want to make sure for the minutes that they're actually being appointed.
Thank you. All right, so back to regularly scheduled programming. Those things would just wanted to move to the front so that the public in attendance could stay or go after what they were here for was done. So moving on to departments and committees, for folks who have seen quite a few of our agendas, you can note that we added a new section here for economic development. This is something that's gotten talked about quite a bit. And we have adjusted our liaison program here in the Board of Commissioners such that the economic development within Cumru Township has dedicated liaisons from the Board of Commissioners to oversee and interact with initiatives with regard to economic development in the township. So that's been added here, and I think we'll just lead with that. Greg, I think you had a couple things you wanted to talk on this.
Yeah, and we'll start with the data center for the same reason. So we have a resident expert here, Dave Robinson, that we'll bring up to talk about this. So we're going to talk about two different overlays here. The first one we're going to talk about is a data center overlay. So let's talk about that, what that is and what that isn't. So an overlay is an additional zoning possible at a dedicated area. It doesn't change the underlying zoning that's currently there. It's just an additional possibility effectively. Now, what that means isn't that there is a data center being planned or that there's a data center proposal or that somebody has submitted a data center for development. None of that stuff has occurred. What this is think about it as the rules. So if somebody wants to come in and build a data center, this is the rules that they would have to follow to build a data center in the particular location that's been identified. The area that we've identified is the area down by the Titus station. If everybody's familiar with that area down there, that would be the designated area for data centers. It would be a conditional use there. Back to Mr. Robinson. So we originally talked about this, we being the board talked about this several months ago, how we wanted to bring this forward. As everybody's aware, these data centers themselves aren't very new, but these AI data centers and the mega data centers that everybody's hearing about in the news and stuff like that, those are more new. So we wanted to get out ahead of that. We knew that there were some folks potentially looking to come into the township to build data centers. We wanted to put these rules in place. The challenge was we didn't really have the expertise for this. So luckily, Dave has, I'll let Dave introduce himself and give you a little bit of about his background then. Dave volunteered to help us out, and the township, I would say, has a debt of gratitude to Dave for helping us out on this, because we kind of didn't know exactly where to go with it until we got his guidance. So maybe I'll pause there and I'll just let Dave introduce himself, and then we'll go in a little bit more.
Yeah, hi, I'm David Robinson, 1 Hesham Boulevard. And just a correction, I don't want to say I'm a data center expert, but I have a lot of data center experience. Just a quick background, I have about 35 years in the IT industry, about the last 25 years in IT leadership, and the last 15 years or so have been pretty much dedicated to data center operations globally. I primarily worked with some very large European companies that have a heavy presence in North America. I was responsible for data center operations throughout North America, as well as some of the other regions throughout the world. Let's say the Western Hemisphere, like South America, Central America, but primarily North America.
I think Just for the sake of everyone in this room, you're the data center expert.
I know how they work. I know the environment. I know what we need to look at in the data centers, what could be a problem. I don't want to say I'm opposed or in favor of any data centers, or it's good or bad. That's not why I'm here, but just to answer any questions or help with guidance.
So what we did, just kind of as a matter of background for everybody, there aren't a lot of municipalities that have these kind of ordinances in place yet. Between Kelsey and Dave, they dug up probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 of them, all across Pennsylvania. There was literally none in Berks County. So we're the first municipality to be looking at these in Berks County. And what Dave did, this is the debt of gratitude part. Dave went into every one of these ordinances and pulled out the best parts of it, basically. Said, this is great here, this is great there, and then integrated it all into one ordinance that we have, or I should say, I don't know if ordinance is the right word, but overlay, whatever the right terminology is. We pulled it all together into one document. And if we didn't have Dave, we could have probably done it, but we wouldn't have done quite as good of a job as we would with him. So he gave the direction. In some cases, he didn't just simply pull it out, but he beefed up the language in some cases and said, well, they put this in here, which is a good topic, but they really should have said X, Y, and Z. So he also added X, Y, and Z in there. So that really gave us a strong foundation to put this together. We then had from Joe's team over at Great Valley, Steve looked at this as well, and then he gave some feedback. Kind of where we left it is that there was maybe a couple points between Dave and Steve that needed to be ironed out a little bit. Some of it involved Kelsey, where she gave some comments on it. So we wanted to just kind of set this up as, I'll call it a review of the draft that we have today. So our board has that draft that we talked about. So we'll open it up for our board to ask questions to Dave or to Joe. And then maybe we can talk about some of the outstanding questions that Dave, Joe, and Kelsey have as well, with the goal to kind of wrap this up in a bow if possible, so that we can start moving this forward towards a final product to get this in place. So with that, I don't know, maybe we start with the board for questions.
Just want to make sure everybody has had an opportunity to at least look at it or has a copy of it if there are questions. Peter, it looks like you might have a
I
comment
don't
or
have a
question.
question about the ordinance. I have looked at it. Just a kind of an ignorant question. Do data centers employ many people?
No, very few. So yeah, and let me back up a little bit. So most of the data centers that I've worked with, they range from small company-based data centers to the large commercial data centers. When I say large, I'm talking in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 square feet. And those are pretty big. You know, that takes up a lot of, a lot of acreage. But what I'm seeing now, and this is really recent in the last year, is these data center campuses, and they're mostly referred to as hyperscale data centers. But even in a 100 to 200,000 square foot data center, they might have 50 employees. Most of them are going to be security. You're going to have a lot of electrical experts and some high level tradespeople, but most of the people that work in the data centers or come to the data centers are third party consultants, tradesmen, just technicians come to do work.
I have a question. One of my biggest concerns is the amount of water that they use. I've been a lifelong resident here, and creeks that have been running like my entire life every day are now dried up. Would that make it worse?
That's jumping ahead too far because we don't have any idea what a data center might do for cooling. They use water for cooling if they have the evaporated water chillers, right? They could also use condenser systems that don't use water. Microsoft is working on a zero water solution right now for data centers. So you really don't know.
Or people's wells drying up, so that's not
that's the challenge, and that's what we tried to put in the ordinance. So what we wanted to put in there is that, number one, the research is done, the diligence is done to identify, first of all, where the water would come from if they did use water, what the estimate of monthly consumption would be, if it was groundwater based, where those wells would be, how far out the groundwater well, the artesian wells go. And then how do we monitor that going forward? So, for example, at least once a year, if they say the water, we could sustain 100,000 gallons or 1,000,000 gallons a day, whatever it might be, whatever the number might be, without impacting the groundwater tables. Okay, fine. Let's monitor that every year or every 6 months and look at those water tables again, see where they are. Are the conditions still the same? And how low can it go before it does impact any streams or anything
And
else?
on the other hand, besides extracting water, would it cause water pollution?
Well, no more than any other industrial development would with your stormwater runoff. I don't think they do anything to the water when they run it through the chillers, so it should be clean water coming in.
I would want to ask, and I'm not sure if it's covered in here. I didn't get a chance to read it all, but the other concern that I've been reading about and hearing is energy consumption and what that could do to people's energy bills. Do you have any experience and was that kind of?
I'm trying to get my arms around that because if you build a data center in Cumru Township, that's not going to impact the township, and that's not going to raise the rates to Cumru Township, right? And the way, one of my customers was a power company out west, but there's 3 parts to energy: is generation, transmission, and distribution. We have PJW, that's our grid provider for 13 states, right? So they take the generated energy and put it into the transmission lines, then that goes out to distribution centers, and that's what MedEd takes it, and we all get electricity. So it's really a matter of how much electricity is being produced that gets on the grid, and then it gets into supply and demand, but it's not going to be a localized issue. It's going to be PJW with 13 states, Pennsylvania wants to put regulations and impacts prices through Pennsylvania. We don't know.
And just to address both your points, so Dave kind of hinted at this, but there is stuff in the ordinance that says you've got to do X, Y, and Z to prove that you're not going to upset our water table. There's stuff in there that says you've got to prove from a utility standpoint as it relates to electricity that you can get the proper amount of electricity there and so on and so forth too. So there's I'll call them I don't want to use the word hurdles because that sounds negative, but there's things that they have to do in order for us to approve this as a conditional use.
I also saw, I didn't even think of it, but the life expectancy of the building. Is there a particular life expectancy? Because there was a clause in there, something about if the center moves out, that you have to, yeah.
I'm trying to envision also what decommissioning might entail, because these buildings are just shells. It's just like an empty warehouse when they build it. It's got all the facilities there, all the infrastructure to provide all the power and cooling, but the inside of the building is going to be completely empty, right? So businesses are going to come in and reserve space in that data center floor, put their own racks in their cages to enclose the racks and so on. They own all the equipment. When they're done with it, they take it out, they dispose of it. It's not the data center. So what you're going to have left if the data center does, get retired is any of the storage facilities they might have for on-site diesel.
Why would it get retired? Because they move or?
No, that's a good question. People talk about AI bubble right now. I don't see how this is going to be sustained, this rate of growth for a long time. Just going back to the history of computers, every so often, it's like you chart it as the processors get faster and smaller over time, and you get that much more compute into a much smaller space. I think we're going to find ways to get all the AI computing and so on, and power issues, and shrink it down. We're going to have all these big data center complexes that eventually want our customers. So.
Hence the reason you put decommissioning language in there.
Yeah.
Because they're hard to repurpose.
I wanted to sort of piggyback on that. I want to clarify that I think my understanding is the intention with this overlay and the zoning amendment wouldn't be to roll out the red carpet for any data center developer to come and build a data center wherever they want in Cumru Township. It's to specifically say, okay, these things are happening, but we want certain buffer zones between any such data center development and the next property, or we want berms if they're abutting certain property types, or we want to make sure a data center developer is coming in and putting it in a place that our residents aren't going to be like, what the hell, why is there a data center next to my house now? This isn't the agenda here is to protect the township while encouraging logical development if it makes sense where it
Yeah,
makes
that's the
sense.
way I see the ordinance also, is just putting the parameters around what, like you said, the setbacks, the maximum height, things like that. But I do think, there's areas to be concerned about, these data centers. There's a Uptime Institute that defines the tier level of data center, tier 3, tier 4. It's going to be tier 3 or tier 4, which means everything has to be fully redundant. They have to have 2 independent power sources. So it's not just like hooking into the transmission lines and they have their power. They need a secondary source that's completely separate, right? So they have to either get power from 2 separate substations or 1 substation, and then either produce power on site or build their own substation on site. And same thing with water. They need 2 separate sources of water, whether that's water tanks as well as public water. But those are where we're going to run into the concerns, in my opinion.
Well, I heard that they're really very noisy too. How far does the noise travel once they put noise?
Again, it depends on what they use for cooling. And that's where if there's going to be noise, that's where it's going to come from. If they use condensers, they're going to be louder, but they won't use the water. If they use water chillers, they won't be as loud. I'll tell you, I've been to data centers all over the world, right? And I've never noticed a noise issue outside of data center. They're in public areas, there's traffic, things like that, ambient noise, but I've never noticed noise specifically coming from the data center.
I just have one other kind of general question. You talked about the building. Actually, if it's a shell, as you suggested, it's not going to produce much in terms of revenue for property tax. Is that right?
I don't know how they get valued.
Well, if it's just a building, it probably won't. I wanted to make sure that I was hearing it right.
Yeah, it's more than not just a building. So you have your warehouse, the superstructure itself, but then all the other, and we talked about the accessory use or accessory structures that go along with it, and that's where you get into what might add value. You talk about power, they need redundant sources of power. They also need backup power. So, if all the transmission line, if the grid goes down, they have to have power. They can't be down. Businesses measure downtime in millions per hour at these data centers. So they'll spend a lot of money, to make sure they never go down. But they'll have on-site generators to cover the full power load, in addition to any other power stations that they might have. So you'll have all that. You'll have all these storage tanks. So all those generators, depending on how many megawatts they need to generate, you could have 50, 100,000, 200,000 of diesel fuel that they have to keep on site to run for. The requirement is a minimum 48 hours without public utility power.
Yeah, the tax revenue would be based on what the improvements on the property are assessed at and the land is assessed at, and it just depends on that particular assessment, so.
Yeah, so I guess 2 points just to address Alicia's point about the noise. There is an entire section on noise in there.
Yeah.
Just like the water, it says these are the things you have to do in terms of mitigating noise. To Peter's point, the developers that I've heard talk about this, they said they're very profitable from a tax revenue standpoint. I don't know the inner workings of how they got to those numbers, but I do know in some of the places that they are operating, particularly like in Northern Virginia, they have a lot of tax revenue. So I don't know exactly how they generate that, but there is something that's generating a lot of revenue.
That would be good to find out.
Yeah, so
yes,
I wanted to maybe piggyback a little bit on that too. Is the building itself is a shell. It's what brings the value of the development, and what I'm assuming, I'm not an expert on how the tax assessments for data centers work, is the amount of improvement you need to do to the property to even make it worthwhile to drop that shell on it is immense. You need to your point, redundancy in power, redundancy in cooling systems. There's immense amount of accessory development that needs to be put in place to make it even worthwhile to drop the shell and put up the computer racks and make them run. That's, I would imagine, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'd imagine that's the easy part, is building this building and then wiring up a bunch of Ethernet cables to
Well, I mean, it's
not easy.
It's not that simple. I mean, what another important piece is their connectivity to the outside world, and they need to have dozens of network connectivity providers that'll take that last mile to the switching station. But so there's a lot of communications utilities that need to be on there too.
And I also wanted to just follow up on what Greg had said about the noise restrictions. I was looking through it. I don't have the notes on exactly where, but I think there's hard noise limits at property lines in the ordinance. There's requirements for prospective interim and as-built sound studies to be done by anyone who wanted to build some of these things. So it's very much guarded against if there were noise issues.
And then same thing there, we want to continuously monitor it. We did talk about looking at the ambient noise. So depending on where it's located, there might be a lot of ambient noise. And I think we're saying you can't go 10 decibels above the ambient noise level. A little bit more relaxed during the day than nighttime. And I think that's it.
Anything else from the board here? Joe, are you prepared to talk to some of this stuff, or do we need to talk to Steve about the questions that?
Probably would defer most of it to Steve. I know he looked at it. I mean, I looked at some of his comments and so forth. And I think Steve's view is making sure, I mean, I think he concurs everything what Dave has, making it tight, but just so that when we're reviewing these plans, that there's consistencies with our other parts of the zoning ordinance so that we're not going to get challenged on things. I know sometimes maybe Steve was a little more particular with definitions and so forth, but I think it's just so that we're making sure that when we do review this, that there's not a gap or something that somebody can come back and challenge us on it. And I think we're just making sure that we feel comfortable so that when we're reviewing this on behalf of the planning commission, that we're covering all the bases. I mean, I looked at some of his comments. I agree with him, and I know there's been some dialogue between Steve and Dave, and I think we're kind of getting close to close to I would say a product that I think everybody's going to be satisfied with, or at least.
I didn't want to overstep my, what I can contribute. But
actually, I appreciate your technical aspect because you know this a lot better. I mean, we're looking at it more for the zoning. I mean, we have the testing in there for the sound and the drawdown for the wells if they're going to pull, water from a well, looking at local wells, or if it's going to be public water and so forth. I think they're big factors. I think we have 4 different water companies in our township. And making sure that we have safeguards in there saying that a will serve letter will be produced, that there's going to be adequate capacity, and that's not going to affect our customers as well. I think that's always important. And when looking at this document, it has it in there. Same with the electric and so forth. I mean, it's typically what we always require, that you get approval from the respective utility companies. But in this case, it goes into a little bit more specifics with the electric, just to make sure that adequate power can be served there as well as water. And same with the environmental studies, doing a water resource study. I think Steve was questioning whether if they're going to pull from a public utility such as Rawa or Shillington Borough or PA American, we have Aqua as well. The extent of what we want to require at water resources. Sometimes water resources studies just are dependent upon the impervious coverage. If a developer puts in so much impervious coverage, even though they might be drawing from a public water source, you still want to make sure that you're not contaminating the water table or any nearby wells that might be adjoining to that. So, as far as any other questions, if I can't answer, I'll definitely defer to Steve. Like I said, Steve really went through this a lot more, but it's kind of overall what we were looking at coming from our angle is, just making sure that we have everything covered. So when we do review these, there'll be consistencies throughout our zoning ordinance and so forth. And like I said, I think this is becoming a really good product, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one comment, and it's mainly for Chief Bean. I added a hazardous materials section to it, and there's a ton of hazardous materials that are going to come with a data center, and not the least of is a battery bank, and they have to have lead acid batteries that can handle the full load, the power load of the data center for a certain period of time until the generators can kick in. So it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, but huge battery farms, big, as big as this building. But I mentioned in there the NFPA section 72, 75, and 855 that deal with some of the construction requirements around handling those things and the fire suppression systems, mass notification services, and ongoing monitoring of that. So you might want to take a look at that. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe what we could do is we'll just have Joe and not Joe, I'm sorry, Steve and Dave maybe just hammer out the last couple of points. I agree with Joe. I think we're probably 90% there. We're probably at about the 10-yard line. We just got to punch it in the end zone at this point. So maybe by the time we get to the next meeting, we can have I'll call it a final draft that's ready. It's probably not going to be material different than what we see here, but most of what the comments, as Joe alluded to, are around definitions. And there's a couple things from a legal perspective that Kelsey threw in there too, around the decommissioning in particular. So maybe there'll be some, I'll call it tweaks, but there's not going to be like an overhaul to this. What you have is probably the biggest basis of it, and we can just finish it off for our next meeting then, hopefully.
Just real quick, make sure I understand you, and probably just to clarify for everyone, when you say punch it in the end zone, you're talking about getting a final draft to be reviewed.
The final draft
That's
to be
the end
reviewed.
zone we're talking about.
That's
Yeah,
correct,
not-
yeah.
not-
Just to get to the final product that we can review
Right.
here, so that's
Just wanted-
moving forward.
Just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that was clear.
Sorry about that.
I was just gonna say if Dave and Steve and I and the liaisons and the board members kind of create a final draft, we could always still send it to the Planning Commission and the Berks County Planning Commission in the meantime for review.
That'd be great. So yeah, maybe we could polish that off relatively quickly. I don't know what schedules look like for everybody, but maybe, by the end of the month or so, we could finish that off, and then we could start circulating it to the different commissions.
Yeah, I don't think that I think Dave did a great job. I appreciate your help with that very much because I know nothing about data centers. But I thought that your ideas were really good. I thought the conditions that you placed on the data centers were reasonable, and that they really couldn't be challenged. So I think we're close to it, and I think we can probably get that done.
Perfect. You ready to go to the next one, or do you have something?
I think so. Yeah, I have started reviewing it myself in detail. I have a couple nitpicky things, but I'll shoot them out in email. I found a couple things that seem to maybe contradict some contradictory language. I'll shoot that over.
Perfect.
Nothing that needs to go in depth here. We can review the final product at the next meeting or something. So the next one.
Yeah, so this is a second overlay. So this one goes to anyone that attended the meeting on last Tuesday from Delta. There was 4 zones that were identified for development in there, 4 different overlays, same concept as the data center overlay, where these would sit over top of existing zoning. They wouldn't supplant any existing zoning, it's additional zoning. So the 2 overlays that we have, or I should say the 2 zones that we have that we would look to place the first overlay in would be for the area that starts at about where 724 and Route 10 intersect, heads over towards Grill, but not actually into Grill, just kind of into the larger open area there, and then kind of hooks around the back over towards 625, and then runs down Route 10 there up into the point where Flying Hills starts. And then there's a gap there for Flying Hills. The second overlay district would be like starting where the Dunkin' Donuts is there on Route 10 and run down towards Penske. That would be the second one. So this new zone would be a mixed-use residential area. That's probably the most layman's way of explaining it. So what that would entail effectively is housing with some light commercial with it. So probably the most analogous towards the Flying Hills area is probably best comparison I could give. It's not exactly the same as that, but that's probably the closest thing that we have to it existing now. Where if you think about Flying Hills, you have a lot of houses, townhouses, apartments, you have a mixture of all kind of different housing in there. And then you have the village center area where there's some commercial involved as well. This would be a more modern version of that in those two different areas. So that's what we have in front of us tonight to discuss, is all the different conditions for development. Once again, we don't have any plans. There's no developer that's submitted anything here. These are the rules for the development under this ordinance in these two zones. So that'll be the discussion for the commissioners here on the board. Everyone should have that. That it's zone 4 on your map, but it's a zone 4 and zone 3 on the map that you're looking at here that this would apply to. So what Leisha's looking at here that the public doesn't see is there is a list of all the different parcels that will get impacted by this. So it's literally a list of I don't know, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 different parcels that would get a second zoning designation to them.
I'm gonna ask a question here. The mixed use overlay District 1 area.
No, we're not, 1 and 2 isn't in discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's why I was confused, because
Yep.
I say they already had some mixed use. So
Yeah, 1 and 2 will come down later.
3 and, okay, thank you.
Just to kind of maybe build, I guess, while people are noodling this a little bit. I mean, so what are we trying to achieve here by doing this? We're trying to get growth, housing diversity, and revitalization in the area. That's really what we're after by doing these new overlays. I think what it can do is attract some new types of developers into the area to kind of modernize the area a little bit. And I think we've just kind of outlined in this particular area, the developers that I have talked to about these areas, they're more interested in residential than commercial here. It's not that they're not interested in commercial. They just don't think there's as big of a commercial play here as there is a residential play. And candidly, that's primarily just from the location of it. So if you think about the location we're talking about here, you have Penske that's right there. So Penske's a major employer. One of the pieces of feedback that we got from Penske is that they want to have places for their employees to work that are close by. They kind of use that as I'll call it a marketing tool to get more employees to come and work there. It's right across the street. It's easy. It's convenient. So that's really nice for Penske to do that. Additionally, for folks that don't work locally, we're right next to 176 there. It makes it very easy for those folks to have access to southeastern Pennsylvania, and even folks that want to go west out towards Harrisburg. So that's a very popular area for residential for those reasons. They also like the incomes in that area, which are a little bit higher in the township. So there is a bit of a commercial play there. It's just not going to be as big as probably some of the other zones that you heard some of the folks refer to here, which are more along Lancaster Pike and 222.
Craig, just curious, as I'm looking over the overlay, the owners of these various tracts of property, is there some, I don't know, pushback or appeal process if they don't like what they're seeing in the overlay? Does this have any, I don't know, repercussions for the township in terms of, legal costs?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is if the board decides to implement this zoning amendment into the zoning ordinance, there will be a public hearing where all of these owners will get notice of the zoning map change and the actual text amendment. And they'll have the ability to come before this board and voice their opinion. If they want to legally challenge it, they certainly can through the court system, but at least they'll have the opportunity to come to a hearing and voice their opinion, and they'll get notice of the hearing.
Okay, so it's out there it's not yet been released. They are not aware of this yet.
Right, we're not very far on this draft.
Okay.
So we won't even be sending this to the planning commission or the Berks County Planning Commission probably very soon.
So that's kind of the first step beyond our talking about it here is for it to go to the our planning commission, the Berks County Planning Commission, then for some public hearing. There's multiple steps. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess, Kelsey, that would look like, to your point, getting the final text sort of together, which will take a little bit of time, then sending it over for review by the relevant bodies, and then hearing.
And then there will be a hearing that is noticed by advertisement and by actual note. Cumru always has given actual notice to the owners that are being affected so that everybody is aware that it's happening. And I think that was a practice that Jean implemented when she was manager and that we've continued to do. So we can absolutely send a mailing out to all of the affected homeowners to make sure that they get actual notice of the date of the hearing. And the hearing will have a stenographer and it will be open to public comment on, whether people agree, disagree, what their issues or concerns are.
So putting the legal side of it aside, Mark, for your question, I think what it opens up is additional opportunities for those landowners. I imagine that, once you put this in place, that you would have some developers that would approach some of these landowners and potentially work on some sort of deal to see if they would be interested in potentially selling or something like that, modifying the property, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, I think, given the way the zoning map is now, if anything, to your point, is this gives more theoretical value to much of the property or the parcels in the overlay, theoretical value if they were to sell it or whatever. But I wouldn't imagine the property owners being upset about that.
Well,
But
it doesn't change anything for them. So just because you put this in place, it doesn't mean that they need to do anything.
Right.
They could just sit there and continue to do business as they are. This just gives them a potential additional outlet.
Right.
So one of the things Kelsey said, I guess Steve still has to review this one from Great Valley.
Yes, Steve didn't get an opportunity to review this, so he'll have something pretty soon.
Okay. So just like the data centers, I imagine once we get Steve's feedback, then we could just kind of circulate this to the different commissions then in the meantime.
Yeah, I would say let's get Steve's feedback and try to get as close as we can to what we would consider a final draft, and we can ship it off to the planning commissions and get their feedback as well and see if it changes anything that we want to add or revise.
And once again, I would not expect anything super material from what you've already seen. This has had a number of eyes on it already. So this one might be a little bit closer to the end zone. This might be at the 5-yard line. So but we'll see. We'll see what Steve comes back with on this one.
Just for public awareness, the full report that we commissioned for Cumru Township's economic development is available online on the website. You can download it. There's a zip file that will download it that you can decompress the full report. It's 130 pages long, but rich with data, maps, and background on how they came to certain conclusions and recommendations, and then lots of recommendations, appendices, etc. So all that information is available on the website. If you have any trouble downloading it, please reach out. I think, Patty, you put something on there on how to contact us to get that information. There's also the recording from the economic development meetings that we've had recently and throughout the past year that are available online too. So please, if anybody has questions, you feel free to ask, and all of that information should be available. We want this to be a process that everyone is involved in. We're trying to do this with the community, not to the community. So I guess anything else on that one? Right. Brownfield grant. Was that?
That's me as well. So Delta is in the process right now of preparing a Brownsfield grant for us. So what a Brownsfield grant is it's a EPA cleanup grant. It'll be designated for both the Titus Station area and for Lancaster Pike on 222. It's a $500,000 grant that they're applying for. Effectively, what it looks at is cleaning up any potential contamination and getting those areas site ready for development. So you may be wondering why 222 would fall into that. It's because of if you think about 222, there's lots of both current and historical car dealerships on there, oil leaks, gas, whatever other kind of things you could imagine happening at those sites over the years has probably run off and gotten into the ground to a degree over there. I don't really know that to be a fact. It's just kind of an assumption that we're drawing at. But that's probably the case. And that area meets the requirements of this grant, as well as the Titus Station. I'm sure you could imagine, just purely because of the operations of the Titus Station, that too would qualify, as well as there's potential contamination in and around that area. So what this grant would do then is, as I said, it would enable any kind of cleanup efforts to go on there, and any sort of planning activities that we could use to help get those things site ready, basically, so that they could be redeveloped one day. We have to authorize them to apply for this by the end of this month. So this is something we would have to authorize tonight.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, because I have some indirect familiarity with some of the process here. And please, Joe, jump in and correct me anywhere or fill in any gaps. Because I think some of this stuff is kind of opaque when we talk about it, at least it was to me. My wife did environmental science for an engineering firm, specifically the type of work this sort of grant would allow us to do it. And the gist of it is when one property owner sells a property to another property owner, there could be historical contamination that can come in the form of underground storage tanks. These aren't necessarily commercial operations, but historically people lived there and they had oil tanks that they just buried in the ground for storage. And 50 years later, concrete, basin underneath this thing maybe cracks, oil gets into the groundwater, contaminates well and water table, etc. Takes a lot of time and money to clean that stuff up, and very much complicates transactions between property owners, because someone has to inherit the burden of that cleanup once it's discovered. So that's what we're talking about here, is applying for a grant that would unlock public money if we receive the grant, so that we could help private property owners, remediate any contamination to facilitate investment in Cumru Township.
That's well said. And the only thing I have to add to that I neglected to say is there's no match required on this.
You're correct. It's a lengthy process, especially when you have underground storage tanks. You have to do a lot of testing. It takes a long time for a lot of that contamination to be properly disposed of. Then you have to do what they call a closure report, where you get DEP to come in, and you're right. Depending upon the type of contaminations, whether it was a tank that was used for a residential purpose or a farm, or it could be for industrial commercial property, it is a lengthy process. So that helps that cleanup process.
Are there any other questions?
Given the time sensitivity, I'm happy to move to authorize Delta to seek or apply for the grant.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That was an aye for me. I keep forgetting to say it. So that was unanimous. Yes.
One question. Does this require a resolution? Because I didn't see that when we were going back and forth with the application, but I did. Is this just an application, or does it require a resolution? I I don't have it in front of me. I don't know.
If they require a formal written resolution, I can draft one and we can get it signed. It'll just probably be authorizing the board to apply for the grant. So
Do you want to put that in there, authorize it and resolution as needed or something?
that works, sure.
Cool.
Do we need to, we take a vote for that? Is there any issue with contingent authorization? All right, let's move on then. Anything else? Any questions? I know we did have the public presentation from Delta's 9+ months of their research. And I think many people in the room, including many on the board here, were there for the presentation. Anyone?
There's just one, well, not one thing, but there is a particular thing that had me thinking. In here it is describing different places, but it says also about identifying places that might be considered too rural. It used the language like too rural, and I'm thinking, how can that even be?
I don't know that language in particular makes sense in my mind at all. There's,
Yeah,
in my
so,
opinion,
you know what, I'll
nothing
have
is
to go
too.
through it again to find it. It was looking like you were trying to decide if a place is too rural and, you know, like, you have to get rid of that. Or what to do with these places.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, when you find it, just let me know.
Yeah, I want to assure the public, at least in my case, I share your concerns there. Like, well, the last thing I'm trying to do is get rid of our natural resources in the township. So I think, we need to do economic development. It means development, but the cost to the public goods needs to be factored in there. Public goods being our water, our roads, our natural beauty, all of those things. So if there's no further comment, we can move on to the rest of our departments and committees. Chief Winchester, the Police Department.
Good evening. You all should have my report, my monthly report in your tablets. I do have the annual report that I will get caused to be uploaded on your tablet so you can view that in the very near future. Just to provide the board with an update on the Civil Service Commission process in regards to our sergeant promotional exam process. We did have the written examination just this last Thursday. We have 5 officers who partook in the test, and all 5 made it to the next phase, which is the oral interview, their oral boards, and that is scheduled for this Thursday. Once they are completed, I have a Civil Service Commission board meeting that is going to be taking place the following Wednesday, which will be January 28th. At that meeting, the board or the commission will consider certifying that list, which would be good for 1 year, with also an option to extend that for another year. I did meet with our commissioner, my police commissioner liaisons today, to kind of provide them with this update, as well as to receive guidance on the plans to be considered moving forward in regards to that promotional list, which I will be able to provide the board once that list is established and certified.
Okay, moving on to the fire department.
Good evening. I should have my monthly report. It was quite the busy month of December. If there's no questions, I'll keep this moving. Looking for a motion for considering pay applications totaling $368,020.50. One from pay application 19 from Baldwin Incorporated for $355,995.48. Pay application 18 from HB Fraser, $5,873.83. And pay application 17 Division Mechanical for $6,151.25. Again, for a grand total of $368,000. $0.02056.
Are there any questions? I would move to pay application 17, 18, and 19 as stated.
I'll second.
All in favor of paying the applications, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Looks like it was unanimous.
Thank you. Item C is I'm asking to consider a resolution which should have been placed on your tablet for some language in regards to a purchasing policy or some assistance for firefighter grants, which we have already applied for or out there. Our grant writer had contacted me as some of these grants come down through. They like to change the language. I could not find anything. There was some language and verbiage provided, which I ran past our solicitor, put it in the form of a resolution. I'm asking for that to be considered this evening in the event we are awarded these. Both of these are what they call regional assistance for firefighter grants. And it involves multiple departments. We are the lead on one of the departments. And the one involves turnout gear and the other one involves thermal imagers and gas meters. And Kutztown is the lead on that grant. This verbiage in this resolution would cover our purchasing of equipment under these funds because of federally regulated and moving forward. And this could be subject to change. If they change something or change something, we might have to revisit this again, but now I have something in black and white that we can go back to and adjust. So I'm asking you to consider that resolution and vote on that this evening so I can get that back to our grant writer so he has that in his hands. That's what I'm asking for this evening.
Any question? Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution for the AFG grant application and authorize application for the grant?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's like it was unanimous. I'm just letting Patty know as she's taking minutes. I want to make sure you're aware if there weren't any nays. I know your hand is moving quickly and you got a lot to write. If I do, just so the rest of the board is aware, what I'll probably do if there's any is we'll just do a roll call at that point. But for the sake of speed, we'll just go with the quick. And if there's any contention, we can make it easier on Patty by just taking a roll call. Okay, moving on.
Can I just ask one thing? I just have a question for Chief Beam or anybody. Me and Mark are liaisons for Public Works, and we were talking to Mike Yost, and he was telling us about how his Public Works crew sometimes have to be there for extended hours, like what were we saying, like sometimes 12 hours, 14 hours?
Yeah, sometimes during winter weather, some will spend the night at the Public Works building. And Lisa brought forward an idea, maybe when the new station is open, the guys could spend the night there instead of in our building.
I don't have any opposition to that as long as we're not upstaffing ourselves.
Just a question, something to think about, because they're there, they sleep in the lunchroom on a table.
The need to get into this new facility and see how things are going to work, because when we're having a major winter storm, they're out doing their thing, but we're probably upstaffing also. So a lot of that's going to be a give and take as to what we can house, what we can't house. But there's some other hurdles I believe I need to get past before I can even think about that.
I was just putting it out
right
there.
now we've had pigeonholed things together to get to where we are today. So I'm not saying we can't. It's something we're going to have to look at moving forward because of staffing levels on our end too. So not opposed to it, but let's see how things work out. I think there's a lot of things that have to happen here, but we're getting there. It's going to take some time and adjustment.
And just some clarification, Jim, it's not every storm, it's only significant events.
Yeah, I'm fully aware. I slept on my office floor a couple times and on a cot, so I know, like, I get what Mike's saying. Doesn't happen every time, but potential for it might happen this weekend. I'm sorry, Mike, I'm stealing some of your thunder, but it's good. That's a very good question. Secondly, the earlier in the evening, we talked about orders up in the Governor Point subdivision of the township. They made contact with Shillington Water. They're going to send somebody out tomorrow on the domestic side of things for the pump station, and fire side of things is probably going to be more like a Thursday type of thing. But they're going to send somebody out on the domestic side because there are two different things going on here. So I did make contact with them. I got a reply, so I'm just giving you an update as we sit here tonight that I did get a reply back. We'll see what comes out of that tomorrow, and hopefully Thursday we'll have a better idea with the pump station. So other than that, hopefully that's all I have unless there's any other questions. Keep things moving.
Just a question for you, Mike, following up on the facilities we have in public works. Where do folks sleep? So we don't really have any.
No, we have
facilities.
cots that we'll set up occasionally. Some of the guys sleep in their vehicles because some guys live, up to a half an hour away on a good day. But we just make arrangements and we make it work. So.
Yeah. Sounds like something we should look into. Okay, moving on. Anything else on fire department? I think we're good. Moving on to administration. Patty, do you want to?
Yeah, I can take this. Again, to kind of shorten the agenda, but not to shorten any information that's out there. The codes department report, the monthly report, will be on the website. The December 2025 was my maiden voyage, and it is on the website now. So if you ever have any questions, you can always contact someone, and it says at the bottom of his thing, contact the codes department if you have any questions. So anything can be answered. The next one, we weren't sure if it needed to be on here or not. It had been on in the past. So when Peggy Carpenter left, she had been our voting member in PIMIC, which is our health consortium that we are part of. And so it kind of made sense that we would have her replacement, Kristen Yoder, be our voting representative. So I would like to recommend that we make that so that she can have a voice for Cumru Township.
Is that something we need to vote on, or can we should vote on that? Okay.
Okay, I would move to appoint Kristen Yoder as the township's voting representative for PMHIC. Is that
I second.
all in favor? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So he's unanimous. Before moving on, I would be remiss without acknowledging somebody new in the room who many aren't familiar with, and that would be our new interim manager, Peter. Do you mind just introducing yourself to the public here and saying a few words?
Sure. A little background, I've been managing municipalities in Pennsylvania and Delaware for 60 years. I'm kind of excited about the forward-looking board. You don't often see that. And I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, I'd just like to welcome you. This is the first regular Board of Commissioners meeting that Peter's here with us, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
The last thing that, well, I guess there's more, admin. The ordinance codification, we wanted to discuss the next steps because it hasn't been done since 2000. So, yeah, we need to get those all in one place that they're readily available. So, I know in the past you did authorize that we should look into that and move forward with that. So I guess that's something we'll be working on, and we could update you on it, or unless Peter has an update right now.
Peter, I was going to ask you, just for the public's familiarity, could you just briefly describe what codification is?
Sure. Over the years, the board adopts ordinances for all kinds of things. And it's a company that codifies the ordinances, puts them in a book, and they're categorized and they're updated on an annual basis. I have reached out to several municipalities to get names of the agencies, the companies that do that. The company that did yours back, it started in 1963. I think the last time it was updated was 2000 or 1999. But they don't seem to be in the business anymore. They do a lot of things. I couldn't get much response at all. But there are companies that do this. General Codes is a big one. I see there are others, but I'm not familiar yet. I'm waiting for some calls to see what companies we can contact and get in to get some kind of idea of pricing. I don't really have a good idea at this point what it will cost. It's going to cost something, I can assure you that. Maybe the solicitor has more background.
Yeah, I think we broached this subject maybe last year, and I did have my staff make some phone calls to different codification companies that are out there to see what kind of pricing, see what pricing was like. And I think the lower end of it was starting at about $10,000. And that was like the cheapest end of it. So I think it's going to end up running the township more like 30 to 40. Just to throw that out there. And I'm not, I don't know for sure, but that's ballpark where I think it's going to end up. But Peter, I can certainly help you, and my staff
we
can
should
help
probably work together on this.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's very doable, and the township should have a current codification, and it should be updated on an annual basis. The way it's done now is not very helpful from my point of view.
I agree with you. And
agree
yeah,
with you
I'll
too.
reach out to you and we can work on it together. Sure.
Just my 2 cents here too is part of the goal here is this is having codified ordinances is of major benefit to our staff and our solicitor, but it's also of major benefit to the residents when, as you heard earlier today, people are looking for information about ordinances on alleys, and they're Googling it, and it makes it easier for everyone to get the information they need to be able to say, what's our ordinance on private alleys? Do we have one? On paving, on property maintenance, all these sorts of things should be easily accessible by members of the public. I think one of the things I heard you say too is, and I think, Kelsey, as these ordinances get passed over the years, naturally, not by anybody's malfunction or malfeasance, there's contradictory language that creeps in, as one ordinance maybe contradicts part of another ordinance. Maybe it's just a clause in one paragraph of an ordinance. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have your ordinances codified, it's really easy to lose track of them. I've found that over the past couple of years, every time that I wanted to look at an ordinance to help a resident solve a problem or help the board figure something out, I would have to reach out and ask the township administration for the ordinance because I couldn't even find it, in Mike's old files or, online. So I think it would be really, really helpful for the board, the township, solicitor, engineer, and the residents to be able to have that all in one place and make sure that everything is consistent.
So I guess I just wanted to.
Yes.
share that.
I do want to add just a little bit, that I do know that this was, previous administrations, they were an advocate of this, but it had gotten cut in previous boards. So this was something that kept getting brought up, but then, as, Kelsey said here, they would be like, what? We're not spending, and as time goes on, it turns out to be many, many, many years later, and it doesn't get any less expensive. It just gets more expensive and it gets a lot more confusing. So, yes, I would personally appreciate if we got it all together in one place.
Yeah, I agree, Patty. I think that not having done it for 26 years is a problem because that's just way more information for this company to process, which obviously will cost more. So if we can get a contract where they update it every year, you're looking at a big upfront cost, but maybe not so
Right, but
much
minimal
cost
maintenance, so to speak. Once you set it in motion, it would be good for everyone. Yes.
Kelsey, this just made me think too. I'm curious your thoughts on whether or to what degree codifying our ordinances would limit exposure or liability as a result of things maybe becoming contradictory or
I don't know that it would necessarily limit our exposure or liability, but I do think that it would make residents happier. They wouldn't feel like they weren't getting or have access to information that they need in order to determine what's going on in their property or their neighborhood is wrong, right, in violation of an ordinance. If there's something out there on it, they can do their own research and feel informed. And I think that's really helpful as a first step for residents that right now just come here and don't have access to any of that stuff.
last point here, spoken with Peter. There's been a couple different occurrences just recently, maybe in the last couple of weeks, where I've seen screenshots residents have taken trying to do their due diligence and find out what they're allowed to do or what is allowed. And they pull up screenshots from ChatGPT or from Google with the AI search response, giving a flat out wrong answer because these things don't know. They're going to take the best guess based on what they've seen of ordinances for municipal governments, but has no bearing on what the actual ordinance in Cumru Township is. So this will, to Kelsey's point, make everyone's lives, the residents' lives and ability to be informed much easier. So we can move on.
Okay, should I keep going? Okay, the next one is planning. So the first two, the Posh acquisition and the Deerfield are just reaffirming the plan approvals to keep them current so that when they go to record them at the recorder of deeds, they will have a current date attached to them. So our standard thing. You can do them together, sure. Posh is just they did a subdivision to take part of their land, and now they're going to put two semis on a property. It's over off of what does it say here? Pershing Boulevard. And then the other one is a change to the plan of record up on Deerfield. It's phase 4. They're going to be adding 21 units, I believe. Yes, so 7 townhomes and 14 townhome / apartment types. So this is just an adding on to Deerfield. That's what both of these are.
But both of them are just reaffirmations of previously approved.
Just getting them more current so
Yeah.
that they can.
I just wanted to make
Posh was it
for
was
both of yours.
some financial issues, and Deerfield we're supposed to be having a meeting soon. This is Mr. Whitman. So
Can we just move on that reaffirmations as a group
the
first?
two of them together, sure.
Yeah. I would move to reaffirm approval to both the 2409 Posh acquisitions plan and approval for the revision to the plan of record for the 2504 Deerfield Phase 4 plan.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, and the next one is a new plan for you guys. You did do the waivers last month. It's 340 Old Lancaster Pike. And we do have a representative from C2C Design here in case you have any questions. Do you want to come up and? This is, we did grant the waivers last month, and this is to grant preliminary final approval. They came before the planning commission. It had gone back and forth. They have revised their plan, and the only thing that was added was they missed some no parking signs. And then as everything stated in the GVC review letter and the Atlas Sewer review letter, because they'll need like planning modules and stuff. So that's sometimes what holds these guys up, why we need these reapprovals. And that's the normal signatures and payments. But if you have any questions about the plan, Mr. Folk is here.
First, I just want to apologize. I didn't realize you were waiting for us to get this. I would have moved you guys up to the front too. So I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Does anyone have any questions for him? This is over 340 Old Lancaster Pike. It's right behind the shed people that are there. And well, he can explain it. It's an extension of that. Basically, they're going to do some storage and
It's a two-story building, the garage access into the bottom, and then there's a parking lot up behind. Mainly going to be storage used by their construction company. Wyoming Construction's not really the shed company. They have different entities in there. And it's really for most of the supplies for their jobs are delivered to the sites. However, sometimes they have to get them early and they need to store them temporarily. So this is just kind of a shop area for them to store those materials as needed. So.
Do I hear a motion to grant preliminary final approval?
I'll motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. Moving to payment of bills. Again, for those who've seen agendas, this is just a formatting change. Just added in here. Didn't seem like it was.
yeah, it has all the same things. There was 5 payment of bills. It was December 19th, December 26th, January 2nd, January 9th, and January 16th. So it's just formatted a little different. So the motion is to pay the bills. So
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Felicia and Tanya. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You guys have it. Moving on to Public Works. Mike.
Good evening. The sewer project on Ardmore will be going out to bid next month. There will be a pre-bid meeting on the 4th of February and the bids will be opened on the 13th. The engineer for that project, Jeff Skinner, is here. If needed, he can provide you guys with a brief overview of the project and answer any questions.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Good evening. Waited this long, I might as well take some time.
Apologies. Real quick.
No.
Next time or going forward, if there's folks who are going to be here to speak, just let me know and we'll get them bumped up to the front. Okay. No worries. We'll try to get you out of here quick.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, my name's Jeff Skinner. I'm with Atlas. I'm the sewer engineer for Cumru Township. We have a project that's presently out to bid through the Penn bid bidding process or bonfire, excuse me, now. That is out on the street, and we'll be getting bids for replacing the sewer and storm drainage systems along Ardmore Avenue and Frederick Street, between Lancaster Pike and Old Fritztown Road. These systems there are approximately 50 years old. They've reached the end of their life, and the road is in a state of disrepair as well, and it's ready for repaving. So we're going to replace the sewer and the storm before that gets done. The system was inspected by Sewer Specialties, and we found numerous locations of I&I infiltration and inflow of groundwater and stormwater into the sewer system. And per DEP requirements, we are looking to eliminate that wherever we can. So that's why this street was picked for doing this project. And we will continue to inspect other areas of the township sewer system to look at future streets for doing this as well. So
What's the time frame you're looking at doing the project?
we expect to have the bids opened in early February, mid-February, and back before the board at your next monthly meeting for a recommendation to approve the contract. They should probably be starting construction maybe in April if all goes, and would be 3 months, 3 to 4 months for the construction.
While that construction is going on, I assume the road's shut down?
We tend to just try and shut it down during the day while the construction's going on, but have it passable in the evenings when the contractor's not there, and make sure that all the equipment and materials stored out of the way so that the residents can continue to use the road. This road parallels Montrose Avenue, so the detour during the day will not be that far. It'll be 1 block over. So we try to avoid as big an inconvenience as we can.
Mike, seeing as this is contracted out, this is the flagging, all that stuff, would that be handled by the contractor? It's not going to be our guys out there, right?
Yeah, everything would be handled under the contract.
Okay.
Okay.
You looking for any action on this, or are we just update?
No, this is just an FYI for the board.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, the Harding and Brook Boulevard intersection by default, South Summit. This is located in the same area as Sensit and the Farmers Market. When approaching this intersection, both South Summit and Brook are controlled by stop signs. Harding is not. With an increasing number of vehicles parking along Harding, it makes it very difficult to navigate through that intersection. It's my recommendation to authorize GVC to conduct a traffic study to identify measures that could increase the safety of the intersection.
I requested the police department to do a traffic safety study on this when we got the letter, which they did, and they're recommending basically the same thing. Their conclusion was a 4-way stop would take care of the problem of increased accidents that have occurred at that intersection, and it would also make the problem of visibility go away.
I was just getting oriented on the map, making sure I could visualize where we were. Yeah.
It's the same general area we've been talking
Yeah,
about all
yeah,
the time.
it's the exact
basically.
area we've been talking
Yeah.
about. Okay, sorry.
If there's no other questions, I would make the motion to conduct that traffic study that as requested by Public Works.
I'll second.
Okay, Kelsey just said, hey, do we want to get an estimate first? Maybe that's step one.
Or I can provide an estimate. I can send it by email if that's adequate.
Do we need to make a motion for that, or no?
Could we have a sense of what would be exceptional costs? If not, could we contingently approve?
Yeah, you could do. yeah, you could do a not to exceed amount. I just don't know what that amount would look like. Joe would have to comment on that.
If I look at the intersection, if we don't need to do traffic counts and we can justify a multi-way based on the geometry and conflicting car movements, it would be much less. You know, you're
Police-
probably
The
talking.
police report was pretty detailed, so we'll pass that on.
I was gonna say, if you pass that on, and it might, you might be able to combine it together. I mean, I'll shoot high. I'll say less than 2,000, somewhere in that. It'd probably be less than that. If we get a copy of that police report, we can take a look at it and we could put together a report and for the board if that's fine.
Are there any objections to authorizing execution of the study contingent upon it not exceeding $2,000?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This evening.
So now it was Andy and Greg for the authorized not to exceed, instead of Greg and Alicia to authorize to do it.
Correct. There, yeah, we pivoted there on you, sorry.
Do we need to like strike the previous vote or something? Okay. All right. Sorry. I just wanted to, instead of waiting till next month to get that moving along, let's just set some parameters in place. Anything else, Mike?
Nope, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, just an update on our LSA grant. As you may recall, we applied for a grant for the combination of full depth reconstruction and base repair and overlay of the remaining section of Hunter's Road. And this would begin at the limit of work that we completed about a year and a half ago to the end of the cul-de-sac. DCED did acknowledge in receipt of that LSA grant that administrative staff submitted, and we did receive an email on December 29th that the Commonwealth Financial Authority will be probably taking action at their September meeting, which means that project wouldn't be able to take place this year. It would be more likely, if we're successful in getting that grant, then we would be performing that work and bidding it for the year 2027. The board or may want to consider another project. Welsh Road has been on our project list as a priority. I can coordinate with the Public Works Department and come up with a revised cost estimate. We may need to phase that section of Welsh Road. The original estimate that we did when we applied for the PIB loan was back 3 years ago, around 1.5 million. That price will probably be slightly higher due to inflation. However, I can meet together with Public Works and see if we can phase that and come up with some costs for the next meeting for the liaison committee, and then ultimately to the Board of Commissioners for consideration whether they would like to do a project this year, since we will not be hearing back on the grant at the earliest of September.
Yeah, I think that would make sense to kind of hear what you have to say there, Joe.
Okay, I'll proceed and prepare some cost estimates.
Moving on to the solicitor, Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick update on the Sunset Apartments issue. There's been a lot of Sunset talk today. Andy, Greg, and I did have a pretty lengthy meeting with a whole bunch of public officials from the state and county levels regarding the issues that are going on at Sunset with regard to safety, habitability, pretty much the whole gambit of what's going on over there. We discussed a whole bunch of different options on how to approach that issue, different avenues that we could take, either through my office, through, Judy Schmenk's office, through the township. And so we're looking into potentially we are getting in touch with the U.S. U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department in order to try to get them to realize that this property that they're supposed to regulate and control has all of these ongoing issues, to see if we can get them to make any movement and push these guys to get things habitable and maintained, repaired and cleaned up. So that's where we're at. I do have Terry Noggle from Joe's office is working with me. He's the township zoning officer. You know, we have Willie from the codes department. So there's a bunch of us kind of trying to tag team this. It's just sometimes really hard to get in touch with these regulatory agencies and get traction and movement. So I'll keep you updated as I make progress on that.
So for correspondence, Cumru Township monthly meeting schedules were advertised January 9th. Then going on to commissioners, we have municipal planning, municipal authority and planning commission. The planning commission, we bumped up to the front. So, yeah. Oh, sorry, excuse me. There is something, we still need to accept the resignation of Jesse Morey. But first, municipal authority, similarly, we have resignations we need to accept. There's Thomas Belair's, Sam Kalbach, William Miller, who resigned from the municipal authority. And then we have Jesse Morey, who resigned from the planning commission. Can we just accept the resignations all at once? Unless there's any objection.
No, I'll make a motion to accept the resignations.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Anything else to discuss there? Okay. Moving on to public engagement. This one came, there was conversation about how we convey information to the public, be it in the form of published agendas, published minutes of meetings, recordings of meetings, sort of the gamut of public engagement. There's been various conversations that have been had at various points in time, and I felt like maybe as we form a new board, it might be worth talking about how we collectively see how we want to find the best way to engage the public. If there are ideas, if there are things we want to change, improve upon, etc. So I'll just open it up with that, and then feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so I threw a number of different things out here, a couple different ideas that we can discuss. The first one is just adding action items and having them being tracked. Now, where we do those, you know, that's up for discussion, whether it's the minutes, the agenda, doesn't really matter to me as much. What's more important is just that we start tracking these. And I've kind of been taking notes here as we've been speaking tonight. I mean, I think I have probably about 8 or 9 action items that I took from throughout the night that we can throw on here, assign the action item, name the action item basically, and then put a due date to it, and then have that published regularly so that we can make sure that they actually get followed up on and action is taken, not that they just fall into an abyss somewhere basically. So maybe there's 2 points to discuss. One, do we want to start doing this? Do we want to start tracking action items as I just discussed? And then 2, if we do want to do that, where do we want to track them? And I'll stop.
I like that idea a lot. I think it plays into, you know, Tanya and I ran on some things, one of which was transparency. And, you know, I think this is towards that goal of being transparent with the public about, you know, what we're doing and who's taking the lead and who's responsible for completing various tasks that we have. So I'm all for it. How we communicate it, you know, we've talked about, you know, our sort of tools, online tools that we have. I don't know specifically, but I would say that it could be some kind of a list that's publicly available through the website that we maintain and update, you know, within so many days after the meeting, and it could be, you know, with just an ongoing status of where things are at, so that it between now and the next meeting, it's not like it's just changed once. The status may change, and with that, the status should change online as well.
I'd like to comment on that. I think holding people responsible for getting things done is good. But I really like the idea that what you do is get reporting and bring it up, putting deadlines on things. It's very difficult when you're short-staffed. For example, the solicitor and I are gonna get together on codification. Now, how are you gonna put a timeline on that? I don't think that's a good idea. I think the idea of bringing them up and getting reporting makes more sense.
I think that's kind of what I was driving at. So it's not necessarily a deadline for having it done, but it's just like a deadline that by February, you'll come back to the board and say, here's what we did and here's what the plan is. And it's just kind of like an ongoing update, to Mark's point, where it's a living document, if you will, that we can kind of track what's going on.
I really like this idea. I think it gives transparency and it'll help the community realize that we're hearing their concerns and addressing them. And I know like the Elkins Avenue, I remember that from months ago. And to me, it seems like it's brought up again, like nothing really got any traction with it. So I like the idea of tracking it.
In terms of where and how, I guess I'll turn to Peter and Patty on that. Like, what's easier for the two of you? Like, how would you want to track these and where would you want to track these?
What I did in the past was, I carried them forward on the agenda and then, I usually contact either liaisons give me things or I personally contact the different departments and say, this is what I have on the agenda. Am I missing something? Because you'll notice a lot of these things will say something and then it'll say dash update. That's something I've been carrying forward. If you want it seen a different way, but I kind of, I don't want to say pride myself, but I do go back over the old minutes and the agendas and try to make sure that, we're bringing it forward, unless I was told not to bring it forward or that it was already, handled one way or the other, but.
The only, I guess, thing, I'm sorry. I worry about putting too much on you to follow up with everybody on, like, tell me, what happened here. And so I always like the idea of like distributed content management, and there are tools online. I mean, I'll just use one that everybody's familiar with, but Google Drive. You can make documents available. Perhaps there's one that we could make available through a link. It would be on the website, and that the content management of that could be assigned to several people, distributed, whoever's, the board members, or I don't know, maybe several people. I'm concerned about putting too much on your plate to follow up with people, like, tell me what the status was, what happened. You're having to be a reporter and sort of look for an update, and maybe it can be done by the person it's assigned to, and they can make the update to the document. We can talk about it.
Can I make a suggestion that we list the things? You said you had a list of them, just listing them and identifying them, and we can follow up. But I agree with Mark. We're already stuffed in administration, and if you're gonna add a lot, something's gonna fall through the cracks, and we don't want that to happen. But just identifying them will be a beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, basically, liaisons used to have like a monthly meeting, and if it's like a public works issue, they're probably going to keep on talking about it. And if it's a, police issue, they're going to keep talking about it. So that's how it was, brought forward and reported before. Like all the departments just keep reporting and what they're responsible for.
To update you, Patty, and say once a week or whenever they hold their meetings.
Because basically they're the ones, and then monthly it's presented to, at your monthly meeting, that kind of is your update. You're saying we did this, and this, we're doing this, and this. That's what we have all the departments, and they kind of continuously work on that behind the scenes.
And then it's recorded on video.
Right. So we bring it up constantly.
That's perhaps a good segue to one of the things I've been thinking about for a little while, which is we have all of these reports, we being the board. Now, I realize there's some information that is sensitive for various reasons that can't get published publicly, but probably much of the information that are in these reports can very well be published publicly. Okay, but I feel like it sort of caveats with what Peggy's saying to some degree. Like we're getting reports, but in an effort to bring more transparency, maybe it's in part. I think I agree. I think we need maybe a more formal way of tracking action items outside of just carrying things from minutes of one meeting to the next. But I think as far as the transparency and accountability to the public aspect goes, maybe it's just making some of these department reports more public.
Well, I think I'm going to go there next. But maybe what we could do to round this out, it sounds like everybody agrees with the concept of tracking it. So I think that's, there were 2 points that we were talking about. One, do we want to do it? It sounds like that's a yes. Then 2 is the how. So maybe what we could do is assign an action item to the admin folks to kind of come up with a proposal. When I say admin folks, I'm talking about the liaisons. Maybe you could work with Patty and Peter to come up with something that works. And then maybe at the next meeting, you just kind of say, hey, here's what we're thinking.
So that's an action item for us, Tanya. All right.
So next. Okay, next one. So this is what piggybacking off of what Andy was talking about. So I had to introduce the action items thing first because we don't necessarily need to discuss all these tonight, but the recommendation that I would have here is a second action item for the admin liaisons to work with the admin team on creating meeting agenda timelines, making materials available to the public, posting minutes by certain dates for all meetings, emphasis on all meetings. So we're not just talking about the BOC, and then recording meetings for all meetings. So that's just kind of do we want to do that? Do we want to have the admin liaison sit down with the admin team and talk about what do we want, how do we want it, all those kind of things that I just kind of rattled off. And I'll get you all this stuff, Patty, by the way. You don't have to mass note. I have all these things written down. Is that something that everybody would be interested in doing and having a proposal brought forth by the admin liaisons for the board?
Yeah, so to maybe shed a light, when I sat down with Peter and Patty on Friday, last week, whatever it was, as we were preparing to look over the agenda, one of the things we talked about was we sort of have a lot, especially over the last, let's say, year or two, the things that maybe there were some gaps, I think have gotten better with regard to timelines for publishing and things like that. But maybe what we could do is formalize it a little better. So into a very clear, well-documented sort of framework that we could talk through. So I think, yeah, another action item for us. We can, when we meet, we can all huddle up and sort of just formalize what that looks like and hammer out any specifics. Does that sound good?
It's good. Is it good for everybody else?
Good for me.
And then we'll bring that back once we all meet up.
Perfect. Next one. So I was talking about dashboarding here. So this kind of goes off of what Andy was talking about a little bit here. So this would be new. As Andy was alluding to, we get a lot of reports, literally from every department, fire, police, you name it. Everybody gives us a bunch of different reports here. The reports are very detailed, which is both good and bad. It's good in that you can see everything under the hood. It's also bad that you can see everything under the hood. So from an executive function like our board is, what I am more accustomed to seeing is something that's what I would refer to as a little more chunked up. So what I would see is like more of an enterprise dashboard. And what an enterprise dashboard is, if I would walk up to pick your department, if I said, Chief Winchester, how are things going in the police department? And Chief Winchester would say, oh, great. And then I would say, how do you know that? And my guess is that Chief would tell me somewhere between three to seven different things that he has in his mind that tell him that things are going well in the police department. And then conversely, he would know that, well, if this metric gets over here, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about something. And then to build on that, he would probably say, well, if this metric gets over here, and then I'm like, uh-oh, like I got a problem. I don't know what those things are, but I'm pretty confident that if I sat down with every one of our department heads, they would all be able to rattle off what those things are. That's what an executive dashboard is. That's what I'll leave it at that. That's what an executive dashboard is. I'd love to see us move towards something like that for multiple reasons. One, it makes it easier for us to digest. Two, it's managing up is the business term. So it helps our department heads kind of tell us what we need to focus on and what we need to be concerned about or conversely not concerned about. It also lets us know if things are going well, not so well, what our needs are, so on and so forth. And it also is just something that we could potentially give out to the public, depending on what exactly those metrics are. If some of it's sensitive, maybe we couldn't, but maybe we could structure it in a manner where it's not sensitive information. We'd have to kind of see as we go through this. So that's something I could help out the departments with. It's actually maybe sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually very probably easy, especially once you get a template in place. So I know Tanya's real big on templates, so maybe I could work with her on crafting a template, but then we could get it out to the departments to start working with everybody on kind of crafting those metrics. And then every month we would just kind of look at it and have a high level overview of every one of the departments and see exactly what we need to know, if you will. I don't know if that makes sense to folks, but fire away if you have questions.
So I want to take a stab at interpreting it from my frame of reference, which is software engineering. One of the things I do quite frequently is we'll have systems or components of a system. Each of these what we'll do is we'll define what we call service levels for these components, and translates pretty closely to like our police force has service levels, our public works, our fire, we have service levels. But what we do with the service level in the software world is we define two things, sometimes others, but two things critically is what are our service level objectives and what are our service level indicators. And our objectives are, this is the service level we want, and how do we know we're delivering service at a desired level? And indicators tell us, how do we know when we're slipping from that objective? So, for instance, I'll give you a very techie example because that's where I come from. If I have a server that is serving requests for a web page, if all of a sudden, if my objective is to have 99% uptime for this web page, and all of a sudden I start seeing request failures and my requests go from 100% success over an hour to 60% success over an hour, that's an indicator that my service level objective is going to be missed. So I'm just sort of translating this and maybe giving a different spin on it that'll help us all percolate on how we want to approach this. Does that align with what you're saying?
That's exactly it.
And you'll explain it on a personal basis because I don't understand it.
Yeah. I'll literally work with every one of the departments. It's a matter of crafting a template. And as I said, it may sound complicated, but it's actually very easy. And it's a way of distilling down information and boiling it up so that it can be understood very well. Chief Bean knows how to run a fire department like it's the back of his hand. I don't know how to do that, but he can give me the information that I can understand how to make decisions on, basically. That's effectively what this does. Well, I'll literally sit down and work through it with everybody. It's actually pretty easy. But conceptually, is this something everybody is interested in? When I say everybody, I'm talking about in the board.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan, good idea. It'll give us, like you said, I mean, we're the non-professionals here. You know, I know nothing about the departments that these gentlemen run. And so if I can be instructed where my attention needs to go, we as a board can make more educated decisions.
Okay. I think this is the last one that I have here. We talked about this a couple months back, actually, so some folks might remember this. We talked about a comprehensive asset replacement and road repair schedule. I know we have something like this out there, but we did talk about briefly months back beefing it up a little bit potentially, where we could, you know, for the road repair, for example, you could go out and grade the roads and effectively say within, I'm making these timeframes up, but this one needs to be repaired immediately, and here's what we need to do to it. Within 1 to 2 years, this one needs to be done, and here's what we need to do, so on and so forth for all the different roads. You know, it's helpful from a knowledge perspective, but really use this in terms of budgeting. So you can kind of figure out what's coming in terms of road repair and asset replacement.
I think Mike
A
has something
five-year
like that already.
a capital program is kind of what you're talking about.
exactly
That would
right.
Cover all the departments.
That's correct.
And it would include estimates of cost, it would include descriptions, and it would include how you were planning to pay. And the first year of that, which was, this would all be approved by the board prior to the budget. The first year of that would become the capital budget.
That's correct.
But yes, I've looked for some of the capital stuff, and I think that's exactly what you do need. It takes some work to set it up, but I think it's a good idea.
And Greg, to your point, Public Works, we already have stuff like that in place. And typically what we do, we come up with a list of things that, hey, this needs to be done now, maybe 3 years, 10 years. We'll run it by the liaisons and bring it towards the board for budget purposes.
Yeah, so I guess where I was kind of heading is we could do like an action item, to your point, Mike, with the Public Works liaisons. We could sit down, or they could sit down with you and with Peter, because it sounds like Peter's kind of catching the drift on this one as to where we want to take
I've
it.
done this many times, and it's a question of maybe it exists to some extent. It just needs to be formalized and put into a document.
Yeah, Greg, I was gonna say, perhaps before we kick it over to Public Works, maybe this is something we can work with Peter on, because like you said, this is something that's gonna span all departments, and I think maybe to what you were saying, Mike, is this, and like we established, like this is happening, it's just in different ways, in different places, by different departments. And so maybe it's unifying and formalizing and creating a program around this that is more surfaceable and digestible and holistic.
You're 100% right about that. The reason I brought up Public Works, though, is I think they're going to encompass probably the biggest chunk. I don't know what that chunk is. It might be 70% of the number or whatever, but it's going to be a big chunk. And I want to put an owner on it. But that's what I was going to, put Peter in with the Public Works liaisons so that he can kind of, help them craft this.
It would be a staff function, which could be reviewed with the liaison.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, that's the last one I got on the.
I think traffic and parking discussions, we covered 1 and 2 for Summit and Elkins. There was the no outlet sign at Pine Hill.
Yeah, so I think there's been a couple incidents over the last several months / years up at the area of Pine Hill Drive. Mr. Haas actually brought this up to me, and there were 2 incidents recently with trees down on Route 10, and they were right at that new light that set Freemansville and Pine Hill Drive. And what a lot of people were doing was turning back into the development back there. Well, there's nowhere to go. And he told me a count, I don't remember. It was a crazy number of cars that were going back there, a couple hundred cars that were going back there when these trees were going down. So they were driving in, figuring out that they were stuck, and then turning around and driving back out. Chief Winchester, I remember the police chase that we had that went back there not too long ago. Different situation, but same kind of net result where they went back in there, got stuck and had to turn around. That one resulted in the damage and a whole bunch of other things, but same thing. So the ask is, can we just put a no outlet sign up?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty easy.
That's a private road. It's not a township road.
That whole area is private back there?
I think we can work this out. Why don't you let us work it out?
It's easy enough for me. Yeah. To Peter's point, I think we could probably talk to Mr. Whitman and get him to agree to that. I thought maybe part of that was public back there. I didn't realize the whole thing was private back there. But yeah, I think we can come up with something there. So do we need to vote on this or?
All right, moving on to the zoning hearing board, there's a couple of applications that are out. I know Patty, you had some information around this you might have wanted to share. You want to start with application 836, the Montrose Boulevard?
Yes, it was suggested that we make a more conscious effort to discuss what's going on. Because the zoning hearing board goes to the planning commission, then comes here. So if we have a clearer path going forward, we thought that would be a great idea. So application 836, this is over on 215 Montrose Boulevard. They are seeking a variance from section 406 to allow a residential dwelling located in the high-density residential district to be used as a business professional office. What this is this house as a connecting parking area with the business. And so, which happens to be Advanced Comfort Specialist, which has been around for a while. And so they just want to move their office into there. So the purpose of this is to bring it to your attention. And if you have any misgivings or anything that you want to be said, somebody would have to be authorized to go to the zoning hearing board and take up the cause, so to speak. So this I'll pull a predecessor move. I don't really see any great big difficulties that we would probably want to jump in here. But in bringing all the things forward, I'm going to bring all the things forward, and then you guys can decide if you feel one way or the other, or if you just have no opinion. But it became apparent, that if you do have feelings that we need to, advocate and go to the zoning hearing board. So they have been a longstanding non-conforming commercial use in this area. So they're hoping that they can just move it over and use that as an office building. So
Just curious, if you mentioned this already, I apologize. The Advanced Comfort Specialists, what is the company?
it's an HVAC.
HVAC, okay.
Yeah. And that butts up against the Montrose Playground. They have a combined alley back there. Then going forward, the other application that we have this month is application 837. This is over on 205 Church Road. This is PCS Mental Health LLC. They're seeking a modification of a 2020 written decision so that they can permit 2 additional residents to reside at the group home permitted at this property, which is located in the medium density residential district. So to give clarity, this is a rather large property. It's a rather large residence. They have 8 people living there now, and they want to add 2 more. So more like a dormitory situation where they'd have 2 people for each bedroom. So again, they're just expanding on a use that they already have. So this is probably not one of those that's really going to set everyone on fire, but we wanted to start the new year by doing this. So if anybody has any questions.
This is just for clarification, this is you come out down the hill here and take a left, it's just before you get to Moton Borough down there. Is that where we're talking? Yeah, okay. Okay. Questions, it'll go to the zoning hearing board. Thanks for the information though.
Yeah, just for clarification to what Patty was saying, this board has the ability, if it wishes, to become a party to the zoning hearing. If you feel strongly about opposing any particular variance or special exception that's requested in an application, you can authorize me to go and cross-examine witnesses and present evidence against an application. You can take no position at all on an application, or you can support an application, either by sending, Peter or Patty with a letter that they can read into the record. So those are the three different kind of things that you can do with respect to zoning applications, just for the board's edification, so that you understand moving forward when you see these, what your options are.
In these two in particular, I don't have any feelings towards that.
That's what I said. These are pretty benign, but we wanted to just set up the system of doing this.
It's a good practice. Thank you.
And for the record, the planning commission did review both of these applications at our meeting last week, and they didn't have any position on either of them.
All right, the only thing left, we have an executive session, and then reminders, for the public, in the executive session, we have three points of discussion, personnel issues with both public works and administration departments, and then some IAFF negotiation discussion. Then we have some reminders. Everybody can see on the agenda. Thank you. We'll be back. Thank you all. That was a while. Appreciate your patience. Kelsey?
Sure. Patty, just for the minutes, we did have an executive session where we discussed several personnel issues involving both public works and administration, as well as a collective bargaining negotiation with the IAFF. And we have two items to act on coming out of executive session. The first is a motion to approve the contract with the public works employee.
I make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous.
And then with respect to the IAFF negotiations, we are looking for a motion to approve and ratify the final proposed draft of the collective bargaining agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve the final draft of the collective bargaining agreement.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Reminders. Oof, sorry, it's late. Oh, no. Sorry. Yes, please go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to authorize the chief of police and the township manager to evaluate the police civil service sergeant promotional list that will be considered and certified on January 28th, 2026, to promote the two most qualified officers on said list to the rank of sergeant in accordance with the Cumru Township Civil Service Rule and Regulations.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, now reminders, right? Reminder, zoning hearing board meeting is January 27th at 6 p.m. Board of Commissioners meeting for February and March are February the 17th at 7, March the 17th at 7, 5th Tuesday meeting in March on the 31st at 7 p.m. Planning Commission will be meeting February 2nd at 6 p.m. We no longer have vacancies on the Planning Commission for the permanent seats, but we do have one alternate position open, and we at the moment have vacancies on the municipal authority, but yeah, we'll talk about that more. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.